Hey, everybody.
What is happening?
Special coverage of the Droney McDrone Face meeting. This is Worcester Council Theater 3000 special edition. We're waiting for the meeting to start. We assume that everybody is smoking a doobie in the chambers while they get ready. It's a holiday after all.
Wait a minute. This isn't the 420 stream?
This is the 420 stream. Attell's gonna get zooted to the gills. Yes, Mo Bergman, this is correct. It's gonna be a fun meeting. It's basically, you guys all know the deal. I don't have to lay it out. The five of you that are here so far definitely know what the fuck is going on. I don't know if anybody saw Two's post today about the report they got back from Chief Sergeant, basically confirming that they will use this drone to track down the unhoused population of Worcester to help, which, you know, is always something that Worcester Police Department is so well known for. Is
how much they struggle with finding unhoused population and disrupting their way of life,
and how they're always helping. So it should be it'll be an interesting. You can only ask drone questions through the chair, but when they get the drone, you can ask chair questions through the drone.
So how convenient it's going to be. I might rethink my stance on this drone stuff.
Thank you, Yenny, for posting that, because I was looking for it. But yeah, I mean, it's confirming what we thought, but also
Wednesday, April 20th. We're in the Esther Howland South Chamber. It's 5:30, 1 p.m. I want to acknowledge my committee members. Vice Chairperson Sarai Rivera to my left. Councilor Donna Colorio is online remotely. We also, I want to recognize Councilor Atel Hajia, as well as recognize Deputy Chief Saucier. We also have Terrence Gaffney, the observer for drones, and pilot Brian Green.
Okay, I grew up with Terrence Gaffney.
As a pilot through the FAA, correct?
Trust.
We also have Mike Trainer, our city solicitor. We're being clerked by AJ Pottle. I want to recognize Senator Moore and also Rick Cipro from Local 504. And I want to thank everybody for being here. Before we start, I just want to make sure that people realize that because we got additional information on the questions that were asked last week, which we can't really discuss tonight, but we're going to have another meeting next week. So what I'm going to do is hold this at the end of the committee meeting. And then when we get those other questions next week before the council, because they have to be accepted by the council first, then those are the answers to the questions that were asked last week. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to hold this after, but this is a great opportunity to ask questions. And this is the form with which we should use. So with that being said, Mr. Clerk, do you want to call them?
Rivera.
Here.
And Chairperson Councilor Toomey.
Here. 1A, virtual attendee call-in information. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, and in order to ensure active public engagement, the City of Worcester currently allows for both in-person and remote participation at all City Council and Standing Committee meetings. To partake in the meeting, you may attend the meeting in person within the meeting location, follow the below link to join via Zoom, or dial the direct line as indicated. Is that on the website, on the video?
Madam Chair, that's correct. So the public participation line is listed on the video, and there's also information listed in the municipal calendar in the city.
All that. Okay. So then we're going to go to.
I cannot figure out how to turn this down, and it's
order
ridiculous.
that the City Council Standing Committee of Public Safety hereby approves the minutes of the Public Safety Committee meeting on April 14th, 2022. Mr. Chair, Mr. Clerk.
Councilors Clorio,
Yes.
Rivera,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Toomey.
Yes.
Hello, Brandon.
3, communications of the city manager, police department items. A, transmitting informational communication relative to the unmanned aircraft system proposal. And so I'm going to ask Deputy Chief to make an introduction and briefly go through this report. And
my name is Paul Saucett, Deputy Chief, Worcester Police Operations Division. And I'm glad we're here today so we can discuss some items
I bet you
where
are.
during a city council meeting, you
Thrilled.
really can't answer questions correctly due to time limits and what have you. So just to start with, I'd like to explain what Worcester PD's UAS program will not do. We will not be pursuing
Delivering
motor
pizzas.
vehicles. We will not be issuing citations. The UAS will not be carrying weapons. The UAS will not be deployed on routine patrol to surveil people. These are things that I'm hearing out in the community that people are.
So what do you consider the unhoused people?
Questioning, and again, being transparent as possible. We are giving you as much information as we can. The other portion of this is, and I read somewhere where people were saying that this unmanned aircraft is 55 pounds. That's also incorrect.
It's 53.
It's
First off,
67.
we haven't even selected an aircraft that we're going to use yet. That has to go out to bid. There's
Good.
several different things we have to do in order to obtain that. We listed one in the city council proposal as an example of what
We are
one
definitely
can
gonna buy.
do. With that said, that particular brand is approximately 13 pounds with the camera attached. It's not a
camera.
55-pound piece of metal flying through the city. The other thing I'd like to mention is our community engagement proposal. A lot of people are asking for policies. Well, when we don't have the aircraft, it's kind of difficult to create a particular policy because a lot of the policy has to do with the manufacturer.
And they're so
With
different.
that said,
So then,
once authorized, our UAS will mirror International Chiefs of Police model policy, which you can find online. We will seek community input from all stakeholders at all of our Crime Watch meetings, where we would like the community to actually see and touch and be around.
Oh, I'm going to
these
touch the
devices
shit.
so they can become familiar with it and ask additional questions.
Can I fly it?
yeah.
We would also like.
I can fly it, I'm
a
in.
mission
Can I crash it
statement
into your car?
in reference to.
Can I touch it with a baseball bat?
UAS with community input. The policy, the mission statement, anything having to do with this device will be put online as our current policies are. Everything's there for everybody to see.
The
As
only
far as
safe type of
deployment,
drone.
the UAS will only be deployed for specific public safety missions in compliance with all
Missions.
applicable laws
I love that.
and by direction of a supervisor. So if a request is made to utilize the UAS, it has to go through a supervisor who then in turn will alert the team of officers who can fly it, Officer Brian Green and Terrence Gaffney, who
I'm
will
telling
then
you,
be deployed to a scene.
I-
Even though
I literally
they are
grew
not
up with
police officials,
this
they will
dude
have the
and
last say
Brian
whether or
Green
not it's an
was one of
authorized
the baseball
use
coaches
of
at my
device.
little league.
And as I stipulated in the
These are not
beginning,
stable people.
these are not, this device is
I
not
hope
going
they
to be
hear
out there
this.
just flying
They're
around,
gonna shoot me, but
looking at things. And one other thing, if I can add, from the original city council meeting, I was asked a question in reference to
I wouldn't trust these things to fly a kite.
retention. If there's a mission
I mean,
that,
if they wanted to get a
we are
kite for the
deployed
Worcester
to,
cops, I'm all behind
say on
that.
Salisbury Street, the officer will arrive in a vehicle, the device can be taken out of the trunk, it can be deployed from there. Wherever that person is staged, there is no filming in between until they get to the scene. To go along with that, any DME or digital media evidence will be downloaded in accordance with existing policies on data and retention records where applicable. So right now, the cameras we have in the city, they're saved for 30 days unless there's an active investigation where that digital media evidence will be used in a court of law. Besides that, everything is overwritten. Every single camera is overwritten after 30 days. So as far as
our greatest hits,
the way we receive,
we're going to have a really hard time putting that together.
Is that actually
the
legal?
money for this device.
To
and
delete it
again,
after
this is
30
my
days?
error. At the
From a records
original
retention policy
city council
perspective,
meeting,
it's,
I said it was a grant. It is not a grant.
I mean, that assumes that any
I originally
wrongdoing
said
on
that
their
grant
part.
was due
I'll hear
in
this.
October. It's not, and I stipulated that night it was actually June. This money came through a line item budget expenditure from Senator Moore, which stipulated that $100,000 shall be expended to the police department in the city of Worcester for public safety improvements, including the purchase of an EOD K9 vehicle, and de-escalation equipment. As far as de-escalation equipment, there probably is not a better device than a UAS in order to diffuse a situation. And I'll give you a couple examples of that.
Oh, good.
This will allow officers to plan their approach in a more tactical way to reduce the chances of an ambush situation when searching for armed subjects, especially in a wooded area. I have direct experience with searching for an armed person in the woods where we needed to call the Mass State Police Air Wing in to provide assistance because they, as well as this device, has heat detection tools that will basically light a person up based on the body heat, so you can identify
Great
where
choice
they
of
are.
words.
Instead of sending an officer into an unknown area, they can plan their approach based on aerial observation. In addition,
Can we use
in the
this to
city
hunt
of
for
Worcester, we
Bigfoot?
are called almost daily for incidents where people with a gun, person with a gun call, and if we can locate that person from a distance, we have to make an approach. So a call comes in from whomever. They say, I have a person with a gun, he's walking down Main Street. Now the police have to approach and try to decide based on what this person may or may not have in their hands, whether or not it's a weapon. If we can deploy this device,
They're
from a
so good at
distance
determining who is and who isn't
and
holding a
visually
weapon.
see
Well, yeah,
what
I mean,
this
if they
person's
shoot at the
holding,
drone, then
that
you know.
de-escalates the situation because we are not coming in and approaching someone who may be in either a criminal state or may have a mental condition which is causing them to act erratically. They may not have a weapon. This will allow us to get a better view in situational analysis of the call we're going to. Barricaded subjects. We will also be able to deliver a phone if needed. A lot of times we'll go to these calls, we need to communicate with the subject. Oftentimes we'll have to deliver a cell
They're
phone.
doing
So
Amazon.
we can communicate with the
I
person.
want to know, the person that's
The
feeling
problem
erratic,
is you have
isn't
to
that going to
deliver
get
that
triggered by a
phone
drone more than a
with
human?
At least 3 to 4 police officers behind a shield.
Yeah, I'm shooting that shit.
Walking up
There
to
was a
this
drone there that
individual
night. Oh
who
boy.
you cannot see
No
their
one was walking
hands.
out of that parking
That
lot.
individual makes a sudden movement, the officers may have to react and use deadly force. By having this technology,
The
again,
only way to stop
we
us from
could
shooting
deliver
people
that phone. We
is
could
to give us a
see
drone.
if this person does have a weapon and then back out and allow time to take care of the situation.
How about just assume they do and wait? Anyways, I
Also,
feel like that saves us $100 grand.
This
die
technology will be
eventually.
used in pre-planning active shooter events. We do training in the city now for Asher, which is basically an active shooter training. And with this technology, we can have aerial views of all the schools and enable us to pre-plan any type of shooting event that may occur. In addition to that, if there is an event, we could actually deploy the device it will help you identify people who need rescue. If you remember from when these all began starting Columbine, kids were putting in the windows, help, I'm in this room. Well, the police can only be on the perimeter looking at so many directions. By having a device like this that can circle a school and identify windows,
Yeah,
of
especially in the case of Columbine, when the cops that
areas of
actually worked at the
access
school ran
where
away.
either the perpetrator is going to leave or we can rescue people. It's just another situation that this item can be used.
Let's give it to the
and assist the
firefighters.
police greatly. With that said, any
I mean, they're
questions?
lying
We'd be
and
happy
saying
to-
that you
Well,
think daily.
I'd like to do housekeeping number one. We're going to have comments from people and phone calls from folks, and I'd like to limit it to 2 minutes apiece because we've got a lot of folks that are involved, number one. Number two, I asked the city solicitor to be here to make some statements about how we, what role the city council has in this and other pertinent information that he can share with us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this process is a public vetting of the proposal to acquire surveillance technology. Under the executive order, the manager makes the decision to acquire or not acquire some technology that the department is requesting, in this case, the police department. But it's been set up such that before acquiring it and using it, the manager committed to submitting all the information to the council for the council then to have a hearing like you are tonight to elicit public
Honestly.
comment on the proposal to acquire any particular technology. So there's no formal approval or veto power by the city council in this process.
Okay. And what about policy?
Policies will
policy.
be, it's spelled out in the executive order, the surveillance policy, the data retention policy. Those are prepared by the department and approved by the city manager. The council cannot dictate policy that interferes with the provision of the charter. The council collectively or individually cannot give directions to any subordinate to the city manager. So that would intrude into that sphere if they were to say, this is the policy, you must put this in. Suggestions, requests, recommendations are fine. But ultimately, it's the department and the city manager that will prepare the policies.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to have all of that clear so that people aren't confused about the process. I would like to ask Senator Moore to come up. I know he has you want to come
Hard
up
on for
and
cops.
talk about the bill that you filed that resulted in this, Senator. I know you have an event that you have to get to, so.
Thank you. Every year, December, January, as we prepare for the budget, I reach out to all my cities and towns.
Whack-a-doodle.
and Ask if there's any assistance that we can provide them through an earmark or a line item. Worcester Police, at that point, had mentioned that they needed a K9 DOD dog and the tactical vehicle that would go with that and de-escalation equipment. And at that point, they weren't sure whether it was going to be a taser. They needed some tasers or a drone.
We didn't
So
know. We
rather
just
than
couldn't
tying their
choose.
hands, we
Could be
we're-
teddy bears.
the line item language
Like
that we
candy
had
bars.
filed in the budget.
Jump right to
we
tasers
just-
and drones.
We referenced the K9, the DOD dog, and then we referenced the de-escalation equipment. And that's the funding that came forward.
Yeah, they
The
put a
DOD
treadmill
dog
in the
was-
car and the
estimate
dog
was
just
75,000.
drives wherever the
The
officer.
hold on, I
25,000
wanna-
would
I wanna
cover
see-
either the taser or the drone. At that point, the chief wasn't
He's-
sure which direction he wanted
He's
to
trying to
go.
make
So
make it
Based
clear
on
that
that
he's not
discussion,
pushing for a
that's what
drone.
we filed, and we got the
Specifically.
$100,000 allocated for the police department.
Well, I want to thank you for that, number one. Number two, did you have any testimony at the State House regarding this?
No,
Okay.
no, again, every year when we start preparing for the budget,
Mhm.
the House has their budget process.
Right.
We have our process. So I reach out, or my office reaches out to every city, the city and the towns I represent.
Mhm.
And we ask them what they have for additional items that we may be able to assist with.
Body
So
camera
this is what
deal.
we, one item, the city manager gave us other items, with Polar Park coming in
Mhm.
and the discussion of possible need for a live shooter, active shooter type thing,
Right.
that the chief had mentioned he might want to get a drone. So at that point, we just said, okay, we will go with the de-escalation equipment language. That way he gets the option for the taser or the taser equipment or the drone. And that's really it.
Well, I want to thank you for doing that, and thank you for listening to the city and for the needs. How many, are there any other cities and cities or towns in your district that have currently have?
Yes, the town of, we also provided, I don't know if it was last year, but over the last several years, we provided funding to the town of Upton, I think Northbridge and Grafton, maybe also Grafton.
Maybe.
So this is not something that was uncommon of a request.
I think the other night I read a list of over, I believe,
Which of those towns
Close to-
have
close to
a
30
recent
cities
history
and
of
towns in Massachusetts.
harassing
As
unhoused people?
was stated, this is a great piece of equipment used for de-escalation, for protecting the public safety, the police officer safety and the citizen safety. You know, in this day and age, no community can say it's.
Why is she eyeing him?
I mean, if you go to Columbine, you go to
She
Sandy Hook,
agrees
you go
with
to
him
all these
and
other places
pimped him into saying all
in
this
this
stuff.
country that we've seen tragedy happen. I'm sure every one of them said it can't happen here. So I just give the police department credit.
Excellent point,
for having
Jessica.
forethought and
Should have
trying to
thought
use
through that
technology in the
before
way
we
it
built
should
that
be used,
dangerous
and
park.
that's to de-escalate.
Yep, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's very helpful technology, but I also recognize that people have some concerns, and that's why we're here to.
For the police, it's what it
address
is
that. So I
that
want to thank you.
it's
Do you
a
have
job.
anything else? you
Well, the
wanna
other
add
thing I
to
was
it?
going to say is
Angle.
with any
I
technology,
want to give these two dudes jobs.
the
Like,
important
and then you
aspect
can
of
hire
it
more cops to
is
fill
the
their
policy that's
places
written
in
that's going to guide the use of it by the
vice, which
officers.
is what they were
That's
in
the key
for.
as far as whether the technology is going to be
And then
beneficial.
they'll just use it however the fuck they
Is making sure you
feel
write
like
it,
it, which is always going to
strong
be
policy
the
and that the policy is enforced.
worst
Mhm.
version of
I
it.
appreciate that. And there is not a one size fits all policy for the Commonwealth, is there?
No, but as that was mentioned, there are the Chiefs of Police Association, or other
Right.
law enforcement, the Department of
Right.
Justice. They have boilerplate language that
Right.
that departments could use as a reference. It's not saying that you follow that policy specifically, but they
Right.
use that as a guide in developing your own
The
policy.
FAA has very stringent guidelines as well. So not only for the policy, but for the training, and anyone who's going to pilot and be involved with it. One thing.
Actually, the only other thing I was going to mention too that wasn't mentioned, and we talked about it outside. I brought it up. This is also, we're talking law enforcement right here. This is also beneficial to the city fire department. If they have to
Give it to them.
if they get a
why
complaint
didn't
of
they ask
fire
for
or
it then?
smoke, rather than having, say it's in the woods or something
Or
that's hard to reach, they could also
have it
send
be
drone out
managed
to
by a
look at
separate
that.
division from the
Right.
police.
Or if it's a hazmat situation. So there's other applications that could be used that isn't law enforcement in nature. But again, the
Yeah,
key to
you want to
be-
take a
the
drone
key
over a
to not
fire?
being
Makes
intrusive
sense every time.
is the policy and the enforcement of the policy.
And I think also the key to it being clear and transparent is ensuring, I know that Chula Vista, I was looking at their website, and they actually post the flight plans that they have to, every time it goes up, you have to have a flight plan. And so they post those on their website for transparency. And again, as you said, Deputy Chief, it has to be approved. It has to be for a legitimate reason. And it has to be, able to withstand,
So
any type of.
so the flight plan has to be approved, but they
Maybe
need the
Council-
drone
City
because
Council
they
could,
can't wait for
confirm this. But I think
state police to
technically,
bring one of their
even the
drones out.
drones that you buy for kids.
They're not going to be up. They're not going to go up right away because the flight plan is going to be
I think
approved.
technically, if you follow the letter of the law, I think they're supposed to be registered also.
Well, they are, but
Yeah.
there are thousands of drones out there that aren't, and actually I'm concerned more about, the drones that aren't registered or that are owned privately, that people, can violate people's rights. As a matter of fact, if I recall,
we should
the
ban
incident
drones
that we
from
had
the
in
city.
Grafton Street last year, where we had the gentleman who was claiming that he had a bomb, there was a drone there. And I think we tried to find out who had that footage, but, it would have been far better for us to have one there to be able
This
to
wee shit.
determine what was going on in that scene.
Oh, she was there
Another,
then.
aspect
You're
to
an
look at too, if you
investigator?
look at- and again, if you look at domestic and international terrorism, again, we always say it can't happen here. You've got water supplies.
Mhm.
You've got other critical
Oh
infrastructure.
my God,
that
they fucking
rather
love
than having
that water
officers
supply bullshit.
being out there in
Such
person, this type of
Horse
equipment
shit.
could be used to actually.
Well, yeah, we did have a
protect
water
those
supply
resources.
and we fucked it up.
Yeah,
like
that's
Quinn
absolutely,
Sig.
that's something that I've always thought about, especially.
How's
with
the drone gonna
terrorism
help that?
issues, You know, so, and we have a lot of bodies of water throughout central Mass that are part of our drinking supply. So that's a very good point.
And last thing, I guess, well, it's up to you. I have not received, my office has not received any complaints from the other communities that have utilized the funding to purchase drones.
Well, that's good to know.
So
Yeah, I'm going to
Well,
put
thank you
COVID
very
in
much.
the
I
reservoirs.
appreciate it.
I can hang
so
around for
that
another.
everyone can stop
little while.
worrying about
At
this.
least might have to be 7 o'clock.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you very much, Senator. I
Yeah,
appreciate
so do I,
it.
you fucking bitch. Shut
I
the
did
fuck
want
up.
to say that I looked at, found an article in Forbes. They
Oh,
mentioned 10 ways that police use drones to protect and serve.
Kate Toomey's
One,
got an article.
They can also do mapping
Shocking.
of the city, highly frequented locations, chasing suspects, which I don't know that we're going to be doing that, but crime
You
scene
said you weren't.
investigation, I know we're going to be doing. Cars, planes, and boating accidents. We do have a number of blue spaces here in our city that this certainly could be very helpful for. And then, let's see, search and rescue, which you mentioned, fire departments, event management, which we already do for the parade. We're doing that anyway with the.
So then why do you need
camera,
to put one in the hands
disaster
of
relief,
police?
and seizing illegal
you're arguing
drones as
against
well.
your own
That certainly could be helpful. And I did print out a little bit of the Chula Vista history and
Is Chula
drones.
Vista
They
in
actually use
Massachusetts now?
the drone as a first responder, which I think is a really neat way to look at it. And it's actually the response time
You have to.
it's gone
I
from
have to
like
get my
10
drone
minutes to
repaired
2
and
minutes to
just
have
send it up
eyes
there
on
and
the
see if
scene
you
or at the issue. So that's really very helpful. And it's, I'm just looking at it from a perspective of safety and also for cost savings. I would think that that would be very helpful too.
I put that piece in the
Deputy Chief?
chat, Brendan.
If I could just say one more
Yeah,
thing.
no, I mean, I was trying to see
I know a big contention was.
how
in
updated
reference
their
to the
policies
homeless.
actually are. Their rules and
encampments.
regulations for the police department
That
were
was a
last updated in
recommendation
1975.
that if
So they're actually older
The
than I am.
outreach workers needed assistance in locating them, we would do it. We're
Oh
not
my
going to be
God.
out there.
The only way to
I've
get
read
me
a
to hate
few
this drone
things
more.
from the public that we're going to be out there hunting.
They're going to get a drone to deliver it to the
homeless
drone.
people, as they like to call it. That's absolutely incorrect. We're only trying to help identify encampments when it's freezing cold out and people can die. That's the only reason that was mentioned in that proposal. And again, it was we're not saying we were going to do it. We're saying that we would offer that assistance if needed.
And that also is a real time saver for
Yeah, just a
folks that
real
are
time
doing
saver.
the outreach as well. I know that Evis and all the rest of the group have just been working so hard and diligently to make sure that they get access to the folks and making sure that they don't miss anybody. It's just really important to make sure that they're living
Yeah,
in
it'd be a real
in
shame if they left
safe
anybody behind.
environment, from a public safety perspective. And you know that.
She's talking about the
Counselor.
unhoused populations,
That's
like
really
there's school
important,
children
too.
on a
And
field trip.
If they need services, if they need
Yeah,
things,
they just
that
got a
we can
little led
certainly
astray a little
assist
bit.
in getting them there as well.
Silly people
Thank you.
forgot where their
Councilor
houses
Rivera, you have a
are.
question?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I have a few things. First, I want to say, I appreciate the fact of holding. I'm, getting this information at noon, which I understand now, but I think just to make sure that people understand, like getting it at noon, I have not been able to adequately be able to review. So if I haven't been able to do it, my concern is that community hasn't been able to really get that information out. And I think what's really important is to make sure that people have the right information out, that they have the ability to ask the questions, to have that level of clarification. So I know that you mentioned it, but just to clarify through the chair to Mr. Trainer.
Never. That's the best part of this video.
Could you clarify like why
Furiously
it came
typing
out
this entire
like
time.
today at noon and not sooner? And what exactly, and I know you mentioned it, but just to clarify again, like how this, this document, what it is and regarding today and coming into council and like some of the procedural and some of it could be through the chair to Mr. Trainer or through the city clerk.
Through the chair, are you asking about the communication from the city
Correct.
manager? Yes.
Yes.
So that has to formally go to the council next week, be referred to the committee. But it was put out today and put up on the website so that people could start to review it ahead of it being formally submitted to the city council.
Which is why, so that's why it's helpful. And I appreciate, Madam Chairman, you holding it. That was a request that I was going to be making tonight, to be able to hold it, just to be able to give ample time to be able to review it and look at it. But it's great. So understanding, and also just procedurally, again, if you can just state, so to my understanding, through the chair to Mr. Trainer, whenever anything, whether it's
Yeah, I
a
can't
grant or a
control
line
that.
item or anything like that, the city manager has the authority to not even have to bring it forth to council, can pass it forward.
My understanding is the line item money comes directly from the state, goes right into the general fund. So there's not an appropriation that's necessary.
So one of the things that having this as surveillance is, to my understanding, and I know the city manager is in here, and I'm sure that we can have this discussion at council, is him bringing forth anything. So I think his commitment to bring forth anything that's surveillance related to council, which can then come forth to the public for transparency reasons through the chair.
Through the chair, that's correct. This is all his willingness to be as transparent as possible to talk about and disclose what potential surveillance technology.
Every time they actually get heat for something and are forced to like address it, it's like, well, they're just being
Just had
transparent.
one, the assessors.
Yeah,
were
because we
required to
fucking yelled at
that's
you.
on council.
My
That's gonna
my
be
parents
part
would
of
catch
the,
me
urban,
sneaking out. And they're like, well,
innovations
listen, mom and dad, I
committee.
want to be transparent with you guys.
It's great. I just wanted to clarify that.
I was going to
And I
volunteer.
just, a request, Madam Chair, to you. I know that we do have probably people that want to speak and discuss, and I know that you're implementing the 2-minute rule, which is great, but I would hope that whether it be today or as we move forward, that different than council, that we would have an opportunity where people, when they speak, if they have specific questions, that there could be a dialogue. So if they have those questions, and I know you mentioned that at the beginning, and I just want to reiterate that council can be, that community can come forth with questions that could be answered, and which is a little different, because in council, we really can't
No, and that's the
go back
purpose
and
of
forth.
this meeting.
Exactly, and that's the purpose of, that's one of the reasons I felt was important to have it brought to committee, because it gives the opportunity for community not only to make whatever statement they may want to make, but most importantly, to ask questions and have that clarification forward. And that also the fact that we'll have more time to kind of take all this and have this conversation would be great. And the last thing I would ask, I know that you mentioned, Deputy Chief.
That's
through the
cool that you're
chair,
on meetings, Ziggy.
that you'd be going to.
I literally
the
cannot
neighborhood
control
meetings,
it.
which are great.
I think it's on their
I
end.
would also just request that we would look at trying to have
Yeah,
like
This is their meeting.
maybe specific groups or organizations. Maybe we're looking at different groups that not everyone goes to. I know that's a whole issue, right? Like who goes to the neighborhood meeting, who doesn't. Some, you know, there's actually in diversity. I'm not just talking about race and ethnicity, but diversity of like communities of people that attend. Some more active than others and some limited. So I'm wondering if we could take a look at maybe having conversations with specific groups, like maybe getting a few people that work in social service together and having that conversation. Maybe some of the PTOs that are very well attended and active. I know, for example, like Woodland has they do great outreach with their PTO. They have one in the morning, they have one in the afternoon. They try to be very accommodating to get that information
I hope
out.
some of y'all are celebrating today
Looking
with
at
me,
different groups,
'cause
maybe
this
having
is
conversations
hard
with,
to
like,
watch.
Black families together, with Leon, with maybe some of the parents that work, that some of the elders that are part of SEEK.
But this is making it better.
So different groups, you know, maybe some of the families and young people that are connected to ACE, or maybe some of the people, some of the families and students that are connected, both college as well as high school students and middle schools, you know, different students and their family that are connected to the Latino Education Institute. And I think that gives us a more kind of rounded conversation to be able to have that. And I think I really appreciate that you're taking that out into community, because it makes it more
Agreed.
personal, and for
It
people
would be
to kind of
fantastic.
feel like they're really
It's a
participating.
confused old lady in a very complex conversation.
Being told that we're going to do, you know, so I really want to appreciate that. And I think that just expanding that, and I'm happy to assist in connecting.
Think there's
with you to
bourbon in that
get
cup?
Some of these.
No,
groups.
that's crafty kombucha.
Hell yeah,
you.
baby.
Counselor,
Crafty kombucha, the official
Florio, do
kombucha
you have
of
any questions?
Glutenani and Donna Calorio.
Just a
Future Mayor
quick
Donna.
statement,
Ooh,
Madam Chair.
you
I
got
just
your
want
wish.
to
Your
thank you for
wish.
having this meeting. It's really important that we have, we understand what our role is as a council. And as I heard through the chair,
Beck,
This
if you're
is so
watching,
stupid.
Trainer,
Beck, if you're
we
watching,
don't have a vote in this. So this
you.
is something that is
thank you.
already
you. Thank you. You're
decided
amazing.
upon by the city manager through a line item. So we don't, eventually this does not go to vote on the floor. Is that correct through the chair?
Yes.
Through the chair, that's correct that there's no vote of approval from the council. This hasn't been decided. The manager doesn't make a decision until after the public hearing and all the public testimony. So it's the process that he will make the decision to approve or disapprove
Slightly
any
delayed, Donna.
department's proposed acquisition of surveillance technology. But we'll go through this process, this transparent process of bringing proposals to the council and letting the council then hold a public hearing to get the public to weigh in on it. And then there's suggestions, as I said, recommendations and requests can come out of this, but there's no formal vote up or down.
And I want to be clear with the deputy chief. Now, you said that once we get the UAV, then you know what you're dealing with in terms of a piece of equipment. And that's when you'll bring it out to listen to people about the policy. And because you can't create policy for something you don't have yet. So
Yes,
that's
you can.
part of the process. So that's
all the
a different
information is
part
available
of
online. The specs are
community
available.
engagement
You know
than
exactly what
this
the
is.
fuck
So
you can do with this.
we're going to be
And
listening
every
to
drone
people
is so
today.
different.
And then also, we're going
They
to have
fly.
another meeting.
They
I'm
monitor.
gonna try to do it next week, if I can. If not, I've got a meeting. I know, AJ, do you think we can try to fit something in next week?
Madam Chair, I can send out some of the asks tomorrow. I'll make a note to do so to work on next week. And otherwise, I know, like you said, you have another meeting on the 10th, I believe it was.
Yeah,
So we'll review schedules.
I'd like to do it before then so that we're doing this in timely fashion. I think that the next meeting with the other information was relative to the questions that were asked on the council. So this is regarding the report today. I just want to, that's my understanding. So.
Madam, just
yeah.
to clarify, so this isn't, just again, to make sure that, I think procedurally, so this is just being discussed, but it's not being sent to council for
This-
Tuesday.
not yet,
This is being
no.
held.
This is
Correct,
from
okay.
2.
So make sure that people understand that.
So Councillor Hajiye?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I recognize that we don't have the authority to change this potential policy, but I do think that we have the moral obligation to bring forward the concerns, especially specifically for me, in addition to using this technology for crowd control of any kind.
The line item.
The specific concerns that I've had, and I will state them here as well, and I didn't
I think
get
it's because,
comforted by
I think what the solicitor
the
said was
document
because it goes
that
to the
was sent
general
to us
fund,
at
and it isn't a
10:20
specific line item approved by the
noon,
council.
is that
Alright,
the
so-
unhoused community is not
our
escalating
angle?
any fights. What I heard in the presentation
The-
today is the word de-escalation constantly.
Tell Eric
I
Batista
heard that,
dinosaurs made drones?
we don't want people to freeze to death. My understanding is that we've had unhoused people living in encampments for years, decades, and we haven't needed a drone. I will say what I said on the council floor. I'm happy to repeat it again and again and again. This making
looks scared.
recommendations for a community without properly vetting it through the eyes of those that do the work feels that's setting a precedent that I would not want to set for my community, specifically for the unhoused community. So I will restate again that my recommendation and my strong suggestion would be to strike any connection, any request for this drone to be used in any way, shape, or form in relation to the unhoused community. To that effect, Madam Chair, I would like to ask, if possible, there's 2 different, one local organization, AIDS Project Worcester. There is also 2 national organizations that I've been talking to get some more perspective around this that might be helpful. So that would be
Yenny,
Eric
I'm not
Tars,
hearing
the
an
legal
echo.
director of
I'm not either,
National
Yenny.
from the National Healthcare for the Homeless Council. I'm hoping we can take those testimonies back to back. I believe they're all virtual, to give the community, to give us the perspective that I think is missing from documents that we received. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that somebody
Are
in
they
there?
on the line right now?
Yes.
Madam Chair, yes.
How long is it?
Gate
If
is literally
possible,
giving
they
its
could
elbow
have,
finger right
you know,
now
they
on the
had
side of
sent
her
us
face.
written testimony, which it would be great to send to you folks. But if we can give them 2.5 minutes, I'm sure they could make it.
I'm sorry.
If we could give them 2.5 minutes, I'm sure they could do their oral testimony in that time.
Okay. AJ, is there any way that you can identify them?
Madam Chair, through you to the counselor, what was the name of the first person?
So Eric Tars from the National Homelessness Law Center.
I will, I can identify that person. I will unmute him now.
Good evening, Council. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Eric Tars, and I'm the legal director at the National Homelessness Law Center. I appreciate this opportunity to share our concerns about Worcester's proposed drone program, and more details on all I'm about to share are at homelesslaw.org and cited in my written testimony. We can all agree that no Worcester residents should be living in encampments on the streets or in other public areas. And if we agree on that, we should also agree that we should use the best evidence-based approaches to ending those encampments. Chief Sargent's proposal states that a UAS would be of assistance to the city's quality of life team when searching for homeless encampments, but he cites no evidence to support that would actually help end them. Drone surveillance leading to engagement by law enforcement in the criminal legal system is not evidence-based, and indeed, evidence shows that taking a law enforcement approach actually costs 2 to 3 times as much and produces much worse outcomes. Research shows that the most effective and most cost-effective way to end encampments is through sustained in-person outreach done by trained, trauma-informed advocates who are able to connect people experiencing homelessness to low-barrier housing and services. Communities that have succeeded in addressing encampments have focused on long-term relationship building over weeks or months, not just a few days, understanding people's needs and addressing those needs, primarily the need for safe, decent, affordable housing. Sweep an encampment without addressing the need for housing, and it'll only pop up again elsewhere, and the cycle repeats because people can't survive without housing. The only way to permanently end encampments is to address the need for encampments. In 2021, the average studio apartment in Worcester rented for $1,063 a month, which would require an hourly wage of more than $20 per hour to afford, but the average renter only made $14.49 an hour. Addressing that gap is the main way to end encampments. Despite the earlier testimony that the drone will only be used to identify people to help, we are concerned based on historical engagement from the quality of life team that the identification will lead to the sweeping of encampments without adequate time to build relationships or provision of adequate alternative housing and services. If the encampments are hidden, the city should be asking itself why these encampments are hidden in the first place. If the city is truly offering the services and housing that people need, they would be lining up around the block for them. But sending out a drone with a camera and a blinking red light that people will know will lead to law enforcement teams being sent out will only cause people to become more distrustful and reluctant to engage with city workers, quite possibly leading them to camp in more isolated and dangerous areas, diminishing rather than enhancing public safety. The National Homelessness Law Center urges the city not to use drones as part of your homelessness response. We've researched and published best practices pertaining to preventing and ending homelessness and eradicating the need for encampments based on interviews with law enforcement, government officials, service providers, and people with lived experiences. We're happy and eager to work with you on implementing these policies. Thank you.
That's all well and good, but none of that was in Kate's Forbes article.
Courtney Pletson from the National Healthcare for the Homeless Council.
Madam Chair.
Courtney.
Courtney Pledson, you said?
Correct.
Thank you.
Good evening. This is Dr. Courtney Pladson. Are you able to hear me?
We can, yes.
Thank you, council members. Good evening. My name is Dr. Courtney Pladson. I'm the clinical director at the National Healthcare for the Homeless Council. I'm a national leader at the intersection of health and homelessness. I want to be clear, this drone proposal, if implemented, will cause harm. There's no research to support utilizing a drone for the purpose of tracking people experiencing homelessness. folks sleeping outdoors in Worcester are also Worcester residents. No one wants to live in a surveillance state whether you're housed or not. If people sleeping outdoors see that they're being monitored by a drone, this will force people further underground to locations deeper in the woods and under bridges. When forced to move from one location to another, people are often forced to less safe environments. This will be the equivalent of repetitive sleep, which we have seen nationally causes disconnection from vital services. It takes significant time to build trust with people sleeping outdoors. And each time a service and relationship is disconnected, this creates immediate harm. And often that trust building must start over. To be specific, the risk of fatal overdose will likely increase.
It looks like a
People
deer in
living
bridge
with chronic
lights.
conditions like HIV will experience disruptions in medications, causing resistance to treatment.
But they're
And there
friendly
could be
pastel
higher rates of
LEDs.
infections like endocarditis and spinal abscesses. This
You
causes
can't use words like that around
significant
these
harm
people.
to individuals' well-being, as well as harm on a community level. The use of a drone criminalizes
Endocarditis is a
homelessness.
transformer.
At a time when there is a severe lack of affordable housing, the response should be met with additional housing, not drones. Engagement and not enforcement is critical. Multidisciplinary outreach teams are effective outreach strategies that are necessary to meet people's most urgent needs while individuals are waiting for housing. These services include medical care, harm reduction services, mental health care, and treatment for substance use disorders. I urge you not to implement this drone program. Please instead focus your precious resources on interventions that we know to be effective and humane.
What's that?
Did Colorio teach psychology?
Thank you.
Oh, no idea.
Chair, and I think the last person, it's either Maury or Linford Cunningham from
Did you have
AIDS Project Worcester.
Colorio for a teacher? If so, you should have gotten a refund.
Linford.
Linford or Maury. If we could ask them to unmute themselves or raise their hand.
If they could raise their hand, I'm not seeing them come up.
Okay.
Nobody else be funny and raise your hand, okay?
While we're waiting, Senator Moore, did you want to respond
Good evening,
to?
Council. Are you hearing me?
Well,
Yeah,
one
that's
second, 1 second.
No.
Go ahead.
You already got
This
his
was
2
in
minutes.
response to a previous statement.
I'm sorry, I was just more, in just in response to the last two speakers. I didn't hear.
Did you have a meeting?
Talking about criminalizing this. What I heard them as a response to the welfare of the homelessness. And I do agree about we shouldn't be criminalizing this. We have a severe housing issue in Massachusetts. My question is,
yeah, remember back in 2020 when they didn't want to be social workers? So it's criminalizing by default.
Each city and town, how they utilize the program. But would it be beneficial to utilize it in having a counselor or someone else of another mental health counselor or someone else going out there to be identified to seek to provide some sort of relief or support to these individuals?
So, Deputy Chief, would you like to explain what we do currently?
I'm not going to do that.
And then we'll get to the other folks. Just because there's an incredible amount of resources.
Too many good
going
points
out,
being made in a
right
row. I
now,
need to
so
break
if you
that up
wanna-
with some bullshit.
Through the chair, yes, we have a CIT unit that's trained and specializes in mental health and in locating the homeless, with the addition of several other people that are employed by the Department of Health. The Department of Health with the city. I believe last
we got
year we
leaf
made
blowers,
contact
we got
with
shovels.
over 200 individuals where we try to help them get assistance. We do this daily. As I said, actually, it's 4 police officers, and they work with the community and collaborate. No time did anyone ever say anything about criminalizing the homeless population.
You don't.
Again,
It's not about you
we offer
saying it.
this
It's about
as an
fucking policies.
outreach
Baby.
to help you
Fucking baby.
identify those locations where you do not know where they are. And we have people trying to locate them to save their lives. Nothing was said about
Or just steal their
criminalizing
shit.
anyone.
And I
Yeah.
want to add to that the team, the
You want to
teams
save
that
their
go out
lives and fucking
are not wearing traditional police
change
uniforms.
policies.
As a matter
Actual
of fact,
policies.
they're
That's
very low.
correct. They're-
Take the
they're
money
all
we're
in
gonna
plain
spend on the
clothes. They
drone
have
and let's build some more
relationships with
housing.
These individuals.
Just fucking
They
put
speak
in
to
rent
on a
control,
daily
and that's
basis.
like that
They
already.
often do assist them in
Fuck these
seeking
people.
shelter.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right.
The boys at the station want a new
Council, you
toy.
can introduce them now.
Sure. AJ, if possible to just, I heard a voice on the phone. I'm not sure if it's the person I was looking for.
Yes, Council, you're hearing me. I just identified Maurice N. If you could just provide your full name, city of residence, and then you can begin your testimony. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Maurice Newman. I'm representing AIDS Project Worcester. AIDS Project Worcester commends the Worcester Police Department for their great work and commitment to making our city a safe place to live, work, and raise families. We want to also commend the Worcester Police Department for their continued interest and partnerships in reaching our most vulnerable populations with well-needed services, many times in difficult terrains. While APW supports the work of the Worcester Police Department within the homeless population, we cannot wholesomely support the use of drones to provide services to these individuals. Currently, while it's not enough, the City of Worcester provides well-needed funding to a number of agencies, including but not limited to the Worcester Health and Human Services, Open Sky, SMOC, Net of Compassion, and AIDS Project Worcester, among others, to provide homeless outreach services. These agencies further partner with each other and other community agencies and support groups to 1, locate encampments, 2, provide necessary services to these individuals, and 3, distribute harm reduction, care packages, and meals. These operations take place on a weekly basis, at times including members of the Quality of Life Task Force, which include members of the Crisis Intervention Team through the Worcester Police Department. In saying this, I am establishing that the city, through these teams and their combinations, and the Worcester Police Department are fully aware of the locations and number of persons at these encampments. The question therefore becomes, is there really a need for a UAS to locate encampments, or is there a need for better coordination, data collection, and sharing of this information? Further, by nature of their core service, the police department's mission is to address crime by and at large through a number of programs, services, operations, and partnerships. In fact, the police is better able to carry out their duties when they are trusted by the community, and there is a great working relationship with the police and the community. The homeless residents of the city of Worcester have been, in recent times, in the spotlights for less than ideal situations, namely displacing the displaced. This has resulted in diminished trust by law enforcement. By employing the use of drones, the homeless population will further lose trust in the police, as they will now feel as though they need further protection from the displacement. Is this the message we want to send? Since the core mission of the police department is crime fighting, are we moving to criminalize homelessness? Are we further telling these homeless individuals who are likely very stressed, dealing with mental health challenges and other social challenges, that they have no privacy? Let's remain cognizant that the more stressed these individuals are, the higher the risk becomes of an overdose. Did we consider the implications of encroachment on the First Amendment right of freedom of assembly and speech? Might I caution that whatever imagery the drone captures become the property of the police department? What if the police department decides to add facial recognition software to these videos or pictures? Are you telling members of the public they no longer have any privacy in going about their daily lawful businesses? In Minnesota, the police department drone was deployed 1,171 times in 2020 with a cumulative price tag of $1 million. Of these 1,171 deployments, a mere 185 deployments were for suspicion of unspecified crimes and 39 for road crashes. 0 deployments were for active crime scenes, de-escalation, or counterterrorism. Might I remind this sitting that in New York,
Forbes article.
Racial justice activist Derek Ingram was accused of damaging an officer's ear by speaking too loud through his megaphone at a protest, and drones were deployed by the New York Police Department at Derek's window while he was not a criminal suspect or part of any active crime-related investigations. AIDS Project Worcester affirms that the Worcester Police Department has been doing a terrific job in keeping our city safe and welcoming. APW also wish to caution this committee of the infringement of the Fourth Amendment right of the homeless residents of our city. Likewise, the stably housed who strive to maintain the legitimate privacy of their properties and families. The question, therefore, is, will imagery captured by drones be considered as a basis for warrants relating to search and seizures? Are there regulations about how far a drone must be from private residencies? Are there regulations at what latitude a drone must operate? While APW understands the need to modernize operations within the WPD, unfortunately, we cannot support such an endeavor based on the cited necessities. In closing, the WPD, through its current partnerships on the Quality of Life Task Force and other community agencies, are fully aware of the encampments and their occupancy levels, and these areas are visited weekly to provide services, care packages, and harm reduction supplies. There is currently no need for drones to identify these sites and their inhabitants. There are currently no proposed guidelines or set conditions under which drones will be deployed. The WPD has put forward they will design a policy to be posted on the city's website post acquisition of the drones. This is simply not good enough, as the public must have a voice in said policy. Based on the possibility of infringement and the constitutional rights of our communities, namely the First and Fourth Amendments respectively, we cannot support this venture. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Chief, did you want to respond to that?
Through the chair, yes. Number one, this is not Minnesota. Number two, we are not using facial recognition. Mr. Trainer put out a report on that last week. We do not use it. We do not have software for facial recognition. And everybody keeps bringing this up, and I'm not sure why. The executive order clearly states it cannot be used in the city.
And the federal agencies that are in the Fusion Center do use software for facial recognition.
And actually,
so if we share
part of the
information,
reason why is because the software is not 100% accurate. And so we recognize that, and we don't.
Also, constitutional.
I think the council voted also to ensure that wasn't going to happen, and so we're committed to that. So please don't,
So why won't you commit to not using it for the house people?
About utilizing that, because it's not going to happen.
Yes, it is. That's
Councilor.
That's the
really
only reason you
want it to be done in form of a motion through you, Madam Chair. But I mean, as we're discussing creating policy, one of the things that we always want to do is make sure that our community is actively engaged. And one of the ways that we can get them actively engaged is when they're not only invited to the table, but they're actually what they have to say is taken into account. Especially if they work within like a specific community. So I'm wondering if kind of on the same idea, if it's possible to maybe organize a meeting, with a few people regarding, maybe with the city manager as this policy is being crafted, so we can have a conversation with like some of the folks, especially providers that are out in
unfortunately, I have to step away.
Working with
we have a show at Vernon tonight at 8 o'clock. If anybody would come down,
again, I think as a community, we want to make sure that we are engaging.
Please come hang out with us.
Councilor, I think that you actually mentioned that previously in the deputy chief.
No, what I mentioned previously was that when he's talking about introducing the drone and talking about the drone,
you guys,
having
please,
that conversation
please, people, please call
now
him.
we're talking about the issue of creating
the
policy.
only thing that
One of
works
the things
is them
that
being
was being
scared
said
of
is
us.
that
So
kind of
you need
policy
to make them
that
understand
could
that
be done, but not
there's
necessarily
more people that
with
disagree
community.
with
And what I'm saying is,
me
as
than
we're
everyone.
having this conversation, especially with providers,
See you later,
since there's so much
everybody.
concern, to be able to look
Thanks,
at,
Brian. Have a good night.
there's some things that police does, right? That there's no way that they know what they're doing regarding public safety.
One of the
certain
hilarious
aspects
things
of
about
policing,
this ban
and
on
then
facial
putting that
recognition,
together,
and I
if
can't find the
there's,
actual
with the
policy
concern
anywhere on the
regarding
city's
this
website.
population of homelessness,
If it's
and
as
making sure that
blanket
when
as they
everything
make
is
it
kind of
sound,
said and
it
done,
effectively
that they
bans
feel like,
Facebook,
okay, we can
any
feel
Google
comfortable
search
with the
tools,
situation,
and definitely any
and
city-issued
understanding that
iPhones or
clarity.
Android
But
devices
when
that
they're
use facial
crafting the
recognition to
policy,
identify the
that
user.
I think that it's important to make sure that we have community voices
Right,
within that policy.
and I agree with that. The issue is,
I mean,
is that
Facebook
they're
by
not
default, it
going to be able
uses
to
facial recognition to help you
start
find your friends
crafting
and
the
whatnot and
policy
tag people.
until
Right,
they get
tag
the
your
drone.
photos.
So
Did you
that's
see the
what
sweet
those
shot of
meetings
you in
are
the
for, to
bikini?
listen
Yeah.
to folks.
did
And
see
I
that one.
certainly think that
I looked
those
good. Thank you for
appropriate,
noticing.
Agencies that are working with folks certainly should be at the table. And I think that the city manager will do that. We just to reiterate, we can give recommendations and suggestions, but in the end, it's the police department and the city manager who create the policy. But it's important to listen to people in the community and understand
And
what
ignore
their
them
concerns
wholesale.
So I think that that's
get
certainly
aggressive
something
when
that's
they
gonna be
say
done.
things
I
that
think
you
that was
disagree
what
with.
mentioned before.
Yeah. No, I understand, Madam Chair, that in the end, but this is part of the reason of like getting engagement, transparency, public voices, that we don't want to be kind of the type of
use
council.
transparency
And
back
I
on
do
'em.
not want to be that says, in the end, they're the ones that make ultimately the policy. I think that part of this conversation is because we are saying, hey, we really
Yanni,
want to
within the
have
first
this
month
kind
is
of
my guess.
open seat model.
Well,
of
the
providing
Brendan,
for
how
the
long till it gets
community
shot down?
And
I don't
when
know.
decisions are made.
If they do
that
end up
we're
going
not
with the
just making a
DJI
decision and
matrix,
shoving it down
they fly
people's
pretty
throat,
high.
but we're actually trying to be inclusive.
Thank you. So I think, Councilor Clorio, did you have any other questions or comments before we move on?
No, thank you. I think a lot
Yeah,
of the
double Donna.
things that I had questions about, of course, facial recognition, et cetera, have all been answered in to my
That's a very good
satisfaction. So
point.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
More
And I
potato-
do have
more
just a
potato
question
cannons needed in
about
Worcester.
the process from our pilot and observer. Could you just, let's say you got a call. Could you go through the process for us? Councilor, can you share your mic? Oh, never mind.
The process requires that you first, develop a flight plan. I understand a lot of these times, will be quickly developed, but we also have to get approval for FAA approval for flying, especially within the city. A lot of the airspace within the city is, since we're so close to an airport,
Actually, that's the better question. How long before one of these folks screw up and take down a JetBlue
we'd have to
aircraft?
go through that approval once we get that.
Fly in the way
approval.
of the airport.
And it's as simple as going through an
Right
app.
into the engine of a
Once we get that approval.
that low
we'd
approach
be able to-
JetBlue that comes
to
over
fly within
right over
those
City Hall.
ranges.
Okay.
And I'm sure, excuse me, once approved and moved along through the process, once we
Yeah,
get to
not
the
sure
point
when that's
where
gonna
that
start.
would be happening, there'd be a relationship developed between air traffic control at the airport and the police department so that, we could all work together.
Thank you. And do you have anything to add to that?
It would be bitching.
Council, just per anything else, it comes down to who's operating. It needs to take in a number of factors that need to be considered, whether you're close to power lines or something of that sort. That would be our final call to make sure it's safe enough to use that unmanned aircraft system.
Okay. Thank you very much. I
Like around
appreciate that.
branches
That helps.
of trees. It's probably
Did you
unsafe
have
to do
anything
that.
else, Deputy, that you wanted to address before we go to the public? Okay. So if you could come up to the microphone and give your name and city or town of residence, and we have 2 minutes
There we go.
for each person.
Sure. My name is David Slatkin, and I'm a fourth generation Worcester
David.
resident living in the Colonizer Park neighborhood.
No
of
tie?
Worcester, which rests upon
It's
the unceded
420.
land of the Nipmuc people.
Respect.
I'm speaking in opposition of the drone we were scheduled this meeting to approve. I hope that today, April 20th, we can mark the passage of Hitler's birthday in this chamber by combating fascism and authoritarianism and instead pursue
Out of the
freedom,
park, David.
truth, justice,
Bold
the
statement.
American way by securing our privacy and individual freedoms, by saying no to additional surveillance and drones for the Worcester Police Department.
And yes to marijuana.
Yesterday, I celebrated 9 years since I was mistaken by Virginia State Police for the Boston Marathon bomber and detained at laser-sighted gunpoint by Virginia's finest for an hour along Highway 81. Surviving this instance of mistaken identity caused me to develop PTSD. This led to my withdrawal from a PhD program in clinical psychology at Clark University, thousands of dollars in mental health services, and several other negative impacts I'm fortunate to have the resources to overcome. There's a significant cost paid by those the police are sworn to protect and serve when they make mistakes. I know firsthand the trauma, pain, and anxiety and panic someone can experience when surveillance leads to unnecessary encounters with the police.
This
Although
dude is
Worcester has
fascinating.
banned facial recognition technology, we also know that exceptions of that resolution allow the Worcester Police Department to share their data and video footage with other law enforcement agencies who use
when we
their
first met
facial
David,
recognition technologies.
I
to
would never
assist
have
the
guessed
Worcester Police
this is who his
Department.
this is the
Facial
way his origin
recognition
story was
technologies
going to
are
go,
known to
right? He's
disproportionately
out there fighting for
misidentified people of
mushrooms,
color.
calling
We
out
know these
Hitler on his
communities are more
birthday.
likely to experience
Was
negative
once mistaken for the
and too
marathon
often
bomber.
fatal encounters with police compared to white people.
I kind of want to have
I urge you to
coffee
please
with him.
reconsider the costs associated with adding additional surveillance tools and technologies to our city's police
I'll reach out
department.
to him, Matt.
These technologies
Yeah,
have the
I'll-
ability
I'll
to
start with
ruin
a
countless
conversation.
innocent lives and provide little upside for crime prevention. Additionally, I request Councilor Toomey recuse
I'll try
herself
really
from
hard
voting
to
on
not
this
be
measure,
starstruck.
given her work with the Sheriff's Department. and possibility of the sheriff's department borrowing the proposed surveillance drone from the Worcester Police Department in the future.
Bold move,
As the Worcester
David.
Police Department has previously borrowed drones from the Massachusetts State Police. Lastly, as an individual working toward a graduate degree in social work, I'd like to know how many other social workers and/or social service agencies have requested the Worcester Police Department assist them in locating and providing services to individuals living in houseless encampments. Thank you for your time.
So regarding recusing myself, Mr. Solicitor, do you think that that's an issue?
Because you have done what with the sheriff's office? I'm not quite sure.
No, well, I mean, that's the point. It's a state agency, number one. Number two, the work
point is
that I do
you work for them.
is basically assisting folks with post-release reintegration. It has nothing to do with the official duties of the sheriff's office. And I don't think that there's any issue. If I had anything to do with it, I wouldn't be part of this. So the answer is no, I'm not going to recuse myself from the vote. Thank you. And just one other
Offering
thing.
her own legal
I
opinions.
want to repeat, please don't repeat the issue about facial recognition. We are not going to use facial recognition for anybody, with anybody, or any other department. We're not going to use it, period. That's our policy. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Hello, my name is Sam Skinner. I live in the Elm Park neighborhood. I'm a member of the Independent Socialist Group. And there's a few issues I want to talk about. First, I think the public deserves a much better answer on why policies can't be made until a drone is actually bought. Doesn't really seem to make any sense. There hasn't been a lot of reasons given for why. That's like saying that we can't make rules about the road until we know if it's a Nissan or a Toyota on the road. Surely some sort of policies could come up before the drone is bought, or a series of policies for each drone you're thinking about buying. Although it doesn't seem like that will really matter since the public really has no say in this, as has been made explicit. I really wish when the senator had asked what Worcester needs money for, he'd looked at our public schools, he'd looked at the state of housing that people are living in, he'd looked at, really the poverty that people are suffering here. We could have the most high-tech police department in the world. It wouldn't stop crime in Worcester, probably wouldn't even make it that much better. I understand that this money is already allocated to the police department, can't go anywhere else, but really the city needs to be funding things that working people here actually need: healthcare, education, housing for homeless people. You don't have to hunt them with drones. I know you object to the use of hunt, but you don't have to find them with drones if you just give them housing. And even though we don't actually have a say in this as the people of Worcester, we can organize against it the same way that we organized and managed to get the charges dropped against the peaceful protesters that were attacked by the WPD in 2020. Thank you.
Next.
Madam Chair, just a question related to that.
Excuse me? Go ahead.
Yes. I know procedurally, but just, so just to clarify, I think, some of the comments made that there's no say regarding the policy. I think we're trying to clarify today that we are, just want to say that we are trying to make sure that we do have community voices as policy is being.
It totally is, Rich. And again, it's a meaningless policy because all local law enforcement is tied into fusion centers
As
that
I
are
mentioned before, our
run at the state
framework
level,
is the IACP
but include partners from the
model
local, state, and
policy,
federal
which we'll
level.
be using.
So we're always
Once
sharing
our,
data. And I can't find
request for
anything that
bid goes
says
out and we
you can't
identify
share, say, a picture
which
or film
device we will be using
with an
makes a
agency that
huge
doesn't have
difference
a
because
policy
they
against
have
facial
different
recognition,
capabilities.
like the federal government.
And the basic framework is all here, IACP, it's online, anybody can read it. And this is the model policy for the country, and it's used nationwide.
Thank you for that clarification.
But this isn't nationwide.
Kevin
This is
Consent.
Worcester.
I really want to thank City Council for following up on this. I'm a long believer that we need to have community participation in this event. So just the fact that the deputy was able to correct all the errors from the previous meeting underlines the importance of having a public meeting to discuss issues of concern to the public. And I'm sure we can agree on that. And I'd like to really also agree with this previous speaker around policy. I've come before this council
with both of you, Councilor Clorio, with multiple policy issues we've discussed. We have a TIP policy in Worcester. We have a wage theft policy in Worcester. We have a workforce diversity
Exactly right.
policy.
And
We
once
even
the
had
data
a
is captured,
dog
it
park
exists.
policy before we had a dog park. It's problematic that somehow we've decided, or some people have decided, that drones are the exception, that we can get drones before we have a policy. That's basically ludicrous. And it's, for us to even tolerate that sort of position is just unacceptable. We make policies as a city. We elect elected officials to make policies before we do things, not after we do things. I'm glad to hear that there's a collection of technologies that we might purchase as part of the drone. I would ask the city release that list to the community so we know exactly what technologies are going to be part of this drone. So at this point, we were only told a video camera, but now it sounds like
they
there are
want a
other
drone
technologies
and
that are being
tasers.
considered
They're
to
going to
be
get taser
implemented
drones.
as part of that drone. So I'd like a full release of that information. So again, we have a need as a community to put this information out.
Yeah,
and
Yanni,
let the
that is
community
Kevin.
To discuss it, and I think that's where we need to be heading. I appreciate this meeting, but we have a long way to go before we're going to really see community participation and involvement in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is.
Oh, hell yeah.
Gutstali, and I am a registered Indigenous Cherokee in Muskogee Creek. And I'm Native American federally, so we have 5 identifications we have to carry around, but we have been monitored.
They always have
beginning.
bandages on their hands.
And believe me, it sucks. There's nowhere I can go without the government, and 5 identifications I have to carry around. And I have been homeless. I'm actually for the drones. If you guys get them, if you guys share, if you guys put it on 24 feet, if you let the community have one, I am 100%, because no, you all know you have some bad cops. I've been homeless here 9 years chronically. I come to City Hall. I'm not going to cuss tonight, just let everyone know. But you know what? Have you been homeless? Anyone on this table, have you been homeless in Worcester?
Not in Worcester.
In Worcester for 9 years. Come on. So what is your experience? Because you know what? Let me tell you, you don't need drones. You know what you need? You need groups like Epica. We ask to be on quality of life. Ex-prisoners. I fight for them. I fight for the prison pipeline. And I've been homeless for 9 years. I got beat up by 2 cops. My sister's a federal marshal before she passed away. So I see.
They are
exactly
so much more effective when they're not cursing.
And I feel sorry for the good cops, whatever, because I'm sure they have student loans, and what a job to have, to go to work, to hate it. But I think we need to also see what you see. If it's this money from the taxpayers, we need to see exactly what you see, because it's taxpayers' money. Because you don't know what's out there, and they're not going to trust you. They're not going to trust quality of life.
Donna has a shit-eating grin.
I'm out there as an Indigenous grandma on a land that you all, whoever, we invited here, and you wouldn't even be here with the job if it went for my people. And that's the other thing. Worcester is going viral on TikTok. I'm getting a docu-series made on this city because of how much this city has wounded my daughter, has wounded me.
We need to stay.
Is that true?
I am, but
I gotta find
I
that.
can say what I want with all due respect. You're on my land. Can I please have 2 minutes?
Oh, yeah. Fucking
Giving you
preach.
updates? Well, then please don't interrupt. So I just want to say, none of you have been out there. None of you talked to them. I don't see any of you on King Street. I'm out there. I'm out there. And I have seen things that the cops do, and you know it. You know you got some bad cops, whoever the sergeant is. You know you do. And it's
Whoever
not
the
fair.
sergeant is. Y'all look
It's
the
not
same
fair
to
to the
them.
city. And I'm going to keep speaking up about this because I had something to do with the Walmart thing. I went and I'm videotaping this. I went to Walmart looking for the owner.
What's
I mean, whoever ran it.
They
won't talk to me. I said, I'm going to
broke
fix
up
the
the
fight and
encampment
ask you why
behind
you did
Walmart
that. And
last
who was
week.
involved? Was the city involved?
Right.
Because they cut down some birch trees. I went down there in
Again,
that
we're
encampment.
straying from.
No,
the
it's
subject.
not. It's
Yeah.
about homeless, with all due respect,
AJ, what's the
Kathleen.
time?
It is. I don't see anyone out there, and you see you're pushing me away because
Used your
you
biblical
don't let
name.
the natives say anything. November,
You've been
they did
talking,
not
so we're
celebrate
listening.
Native American Heritage Month. When is the last time you celebrated? Because it came in place 96. And if you think I'm going to shut up in this town, you're wrong. My grandson's part black. This city took them away. So this city is going viral because my daughter is representing herself. She's going to be First Native.
Okay.
Representing.
Can you
define
wrap up your
herself.
comments,
I got to
please?
find out what they're
Excuse me?
talking about.
Can you wrap up your
Yes, I
comments,
will. So I
please?
call
Thank you.
Ikshijakshan on your drones.
Thank you very much.
What was that?
Thank you. Next.
I don't know, but I'm here for it.
This should be quick. My name's Gabriel Kafka Gibbons. I'm a resident over by Elm Park, and I would like to voice that we would request access to policy before the drone is purchased. As I'm sure you agree, we appreciate our liberties granted to us in this land, and we want to make sure that our privacy isn't encroached upon by this drone. If used for good,
Yenny, can you either put a
it may
link
have support, but
or
we need
like
to know exactly what it's
send
going to
me
be
a
used
whisper?
for. And in addition, I think there should be
I'm on TikTok pretty
a
frequently,
check
and I haven't
before
seen
the
that.
flight path is decided, other than the FAA, because that doesn't have anything to do with any moral inclinations on the flight path. It's just to make sure the drone isn't flying in the way of any planes leaving the Worcester airport.
Okay, I'm sure I can just
I think
look
there needs
for
to
it
be
too.
some kind of
Thank you.
check on that when checking the flight path. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, Kathleen.
Nick Worst, Worcester resident. Yeah, so I want to commend the council on effectively demonstrating how absurd our city government is by
Is this sweatshirt messing
making
up
it
the
very clear
camera?
that this is entirely just a transaction between the state government and the city manager. Everybody's saying great thing. Participation is very different from community control. It's very clear that we don't have that. We can come here and say whatever we want. It doesn't mean anything and it can be discarded. There's no actual control or accountability. That's not going to change how this goes forward. I understand that. So I'm just using this as an opportunity to highlight that point. I think the fact that discussion about policy is locked behind buying the drone is obviously absurd, but the whole process is absurd, as people have demonstrated. The fact that, in fact, someone who came in earlier about examples of drone usage in other places not going so well, and then we've got, for reference, some sort of national guideline. Well, presumably that national guideline applied in those other places as well, and didn't prevent those.
I think it's the reflexive.
Those misuses. The person who spoke earlier about facial recognition, I understand people don't want us talking about Worcester using facial recognition because Worcester isn't going to. The point was made that Worcester doesn't have to. Worcester has an agreement where it can pass off the data to other people who will use facial recognition for us in order to keep the city's hands clean. Again, I think this illustrates the priorities of the state government. The best anti-crime policies are anti-poverty policies. Anti-poverty policies are not wiping out evidence of poverty. It's dealing with poverty. More jobs, public jobs, not going through private contracts. More housing, again, public housing, not going through private contracts. That's all things that the state government, that the senator could be putting forward, and more broadly, that's something that the city of Worcester can be putting forward.
Please.
Kathleen.
No, because this has been effectively limited to being a completely meaningless thing. It doesn't matter whether we're in this room. It doesn't matter what we say. This is here to provide cover so you guys can say you had community participation, and you did. You did have community participation. You have no community control. I'm making that point. So again, I would say that the only meaningful thing that any of us can do in regards to this is organize against it. I would encourage everybody on the call and everybody here in person to take steps to do so. And yeah, I'll conclude with that.
Well,
Thank
looks
you.
like we're building a community EMP, folks.
Next.
Oh, here we are.
Here, I'm Rick Cipro. I'm president of IBPO 504 Police Officials, 28-year police veteran.
Did you just hear, oh my God?
Yeah. So, Madam Chair, back
Kate
in
doesn't
December, I
realize the
stood
mic's
here
on.
before you, before the council, before this committee specifically. And just, as we talked about new technology, I just cautioned the council on, as new technologies come about, please remember that criminal elements have the newest technologies, and they are quickly outpacing policing and law enforcement in general. So, I just ask that you keep that in mind as we move forward.
The bad guys are getting better, so we need a bigger Batman.
But even with this open discussion and this transparency that the police department is trying to have, it just seems that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what we do to try to be transparent. People just don't believe that we are. And the fear mongering that goes on continues after the deputy was very clear.
Yeah.
And the report is very clear what we will do and what we won't do with this technology. And I still don't understand why the community cannot support that. But this is the public meeting, and you're going to have one other one. Having another 100 public meetings to get to a policy decision is not what we're here for. It's not what we're here for.
Fix the
You're
fucking
the
parts
elected
that we want you to
officials.
fix.
You're going to decide. And the city manager, who the city council picks, will then decide.
They're the city
But I
councilors
just really,
and you're not. Remember that, Rick.
really want people to understand that we're not here to collect data on the citizens, Madam Chair, or
Data?
violate people's constitutional rights. And let's just remind everyone, there are more cameras and listening devices on the street in the city recording all aspects of everyday life that the police department will never have. Local supermarkets, Amazon themselves are collecting more personal information on every individual and citizens that the police department will never have. And if anybody has ever used 23andMe or any other type of DNA, I'm going to tell you that bad non-state actors in other countries have more information on you and your family members than the police department will ever have. Madam Chair, I just request, that, this drone is nothing but a flying camera with some infrared technology. That is what it is. And really, I believe that the safety and security of every citizen in this community, and this will increase our capabilities and our capacities to provide that.
It's just a flag.
I was just recently on Monday at the Boston Marathon where drones were used for the safety and security of all involved. And that's all really what this is about: de-escalation and safety and security. Our policies are online. The IECP model policy that the deputy chief is referencing can be easily found. I just looked it up on my phone. It's there.
Oh, we're so
anyone
proud.
can access it. Again, it's a model, a parameter, which ours would probably be more than, that's 3 pages, ours would probably be about 10 pages, listening to the deputy here tonight. So I think we're covering all the bases. We are being transparent. We want to be transparent. We want to hear from the community. We understand that. And it just seems that no matter what we do, it's just never enough. But I appreciate the comments, and I hope that we do get this drone and other technologies as they come to be. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Barring anybody else getting up, Senator Moore, for the third time.
Thank you. And I don't mean to simplify this, or I'm hoping maybe I have a resolution to this. If the police department, as they have said, they would like to purchase the drone and then develop the policies, just get a commitment from the city that if they purchase it, it won't be used until the policy is developed.
Right.
And then this way you get city input, you get input from the community, and then everyone's issues will then be addressed.
That's true. Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. Next, anybody else who hasn't spoken yet? No, I know, I'm getting there. I just want to make sure everybody here in the room got the chance to speak. Did you want to say something? No? Okay. All right, AJ.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just for a point of clarification for all the folks that are on devices, it's helpful to me if you raise your hand. You can do so on the bottom of your screen if you'd like to speak. And then I'll be able to go through those folks accordingly. If you're on a phone, you can raise your hand by using *9. So with that being the case, I'll try and go through in the order that I'm seeing everybody. The first person I can identify is Victor Catalina.
Give him hell yeah.
Madam Chair, it looks like there are about 29 people attending overall, but about 10 people with hands raised. And the first person I can identify is Victor Catalina. If you could please provide your name, city or town of residence, and begin your testimony.
Yep. You can hear me?
Yes.
We can.
All right. My name is Victor Catalina. I'm from the city of Worcester. Been living here my entire life. I'm here speaking against the proposal to
We're
drone
asking
for
that
the
too, J.S.
WPD.
Carpo.
While I do think there are a myriad of potential issues such a device may bring, especially with that of subjugating the homeless, I will try to limit my speech specifically to the issue of protesting and surveillance. Worcester police, historically, have unscrupulously surveilled our citizens throughout the years. Notably, as exposed by the Boston Phoenix and Worcester magazine in 2001, the WPD photographed people peacefully protesting the war in Afghanistan outside City Hall. James Gallagher, the chief of police at the time, said that photographing protesters was precautionary, as, quote, all protests can devolve into violence. With drones, surveillance can reach a new medium, the sky. And unlike a helicopter, they can be almost completely inconspicuous and can navigate to more degrees than helicopters. They've already been used by various departments for the purpose of surveying, including the Mass State Police, which own 81 drones. Given this history, I think the police's intentions with this drone are dubious. The ACLU is concerned that government-owned drones can easily violate our constitutional rights, especially in the privacy of our own property. Unfortunately, a decision on drone surveillance has not yet been made by any federal court, but regardless, the concern is still there. A department must release its policy before any approval of said drone. I would also like to note that policy does not trump law. So essentially, policy is only as good as the people who value it, because if policy is violated, it's not against any law as far as I know. That said, as for the homeless issue, I think the proposal of locating their encampments highlights an issue in all of the United States. We'd rather invest into ways to police them rather than mitigating the issue of accessible housing beforehand. I hope this government does the right thing and carefully weighs citizens' civil liberties with the wants of the police. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next person I can identify is Emily Galante. I just asked to unmute now.
Thank you. I'm Emily Galante, a Worcester resident, homeowner, voter, and I work for Worcester Public Schools. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. So after listening to everything that's been said, it is a bit discouraging to hear that there doesn't seem to be an actual open dialogue. We're just given an opportunity to share our opinions. But that being said, here's my opinion. So from before this meeting, it was told to the public that this drone was going to be used to help find housing encampments. I'm hearing now that may not be what it's used for, but obviously we should be using more effective resources to help unhoused people rather than locate them. Also, I heard that it would be used for crowd control, which the only thing I can think of for that goes along with what Victor was just saying, that this is just over surveilling our public, and it's also inhibiting, in some cases, our First Amendment rights. We should be using these public resources to help our public, not spy on them. The biggest concern I'm taking away from this is that we're saying that the only options we have for de-escalation equipment for the Worcester Public or the Worcester Police Department is either tasers or drones. And that just tells me that there's been no work done towards actually effectively trying to learn how to de-escalate in crises by the Worcester Police Department, because there's clearly other options besides using tasers or drones to de-escalate crises in our city. I hope that this is not just a facade and we're not just talking to ears that are not listening. I hope that people on the end that need to hear this are actually listening and taking into consideration what the public is saying, because as a Worcester Public Schools teacher, there's, and just seeing the discrepancies in our city, there's much better ways to be using this funding. Even if it is for Worcester, the Worcester Police Department, we can use this funding in much more effective ways, especially like as soon as this drone breaks, how much will it cost our taxpayers to fix it? But thank you again for a time to speak on this.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Did you want to respond to that?
Madam Chair, at no time did I ever say we're going to use this piece of technology for crowd control. And to reiterate, as far as de-escalation, there's a thing called use of force which is a continuum. You can look that up online, and there's different steps the police must take in order to react to a subject. And taser is part of that use of force, although this is not what we're here to talk about, but at some other point, we should get that out to the public too.
But there's
because
also
obviously
evidence that cops
they have the
mistake
wrong
tasers for
idea
guns.
of a life-saving tool that have saved countless lives in the city of Worcester, where lethal force were not used due to having that taser.
It'd be a shame if this whole meeting was
Thank you.
recorded. And somebody could
Next.
go back and
Thank you,
check to
Madam
see if
Chair.
he
The next
actually said
person I
that.
can identify, just listed as Nathan. So if you could please give your full name, city or residence, and then begin your testimony.
Hey, my name is Nathan Skylark. I own a home here in Worcester. I wanted to start off by thanking, oh, sorry, I'm also a member of Independent Socialist Group. I wanted to start off by thanking the City Council for creating such an impotent venue for us to discuss our opinions about this with. If I understand it correctly, not only is the City Council incapable of making any kind of decision regarding whether or not it'll be purchased, but we also can't make any kind of decision regarding how it'll be used. So this is a wonderful, wonderful way for us to get to have input on the situation. I'd also like to thank our chair for being as biased as possible in favor of it. And it was miraculous that you failed to recuse yourself. I really like that, Jim. I wanted to speak today about my concerns regarding its usage during protests. I've been at a number of demonstrations here in Worcester. And very frequently, I already see cops hanging their cell phones out their window, taking pictures and videos of, peaceful people just exercising their civil rights. And there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that as soon as this is in the police hands, it's going to be at every protest I go to. And I don't really want to be filmed by another camera. Yeah, I mean, that's most of my contribution. We don't have any power in this chamber, and it's going to happen whether or not we like it. So if you want to start a movement against this sort of behavior, please reach out to ISG because we're going to be organizing against it. Thank you.
Plugs.
Deputy Chief, did you want to respond?
Yes, ma'am. As far as community input, as I said in the beginning of this presentation, we will seek community input from all stakeholders at our Crime Watch meetings. And as Councilor Rivera mentioned, we will also coordinate something with her as far as giving the community more time to look at what we have on the table. We will be doing it at Crime Watch meetings, and we will also develop a UAS mission statement where the community can supply input to help us in our policy decisions. That's the reason a policy hasn't already been formulated, because we haven't had time to reach out to the community and show them the device so they can get an idea of what we're talking about. People are saying we're flying around a 55-pound device, and we are not.
Why
I
so
would rather the
sensitive?
community to see what we are going to use so they can have a better understanding of it. As far as constitutional rights, there's going to be a complaint investigation procedure should there be any inappropriate use of a UAS. This procedure will be specified in the policy. There will also be monthly
I'm
auditing.
sure if we had it zoomed in, there'd be a big old vein in his neck.
Reporting. And the supervisor shall audit flight documentation monthly, which will include number of missions, users, appropriateness of uses, evaluation
Appropriateness of use.
the UAS, safety concerns, equipment concerns, flight time to include a review of flight logs or data.
Deputy Sergeant was out of Slurpee, so he flew it down to 7-Eleven.
All this information is going to be published.
Delivered them a cell
annually
phone.
for the public to see. It will be online on the city
Not that I want to
website.
give them any hints, but
thank you.
They actually have a lieutenant who's very well spoken, who's their public relations
Madam
officer.
Chair.
He does a
The next
really good
person I can
job.
identify
Like,
is Yanni DeRoche.
this is one of those moments
Just unmute
that you
her
put somebody in
now.
a suit and have them present, as opposed to a couple guys dressed like
Hi, can you hear
South
me?
American generals from the 70s.
Okay. Hi, I'm Yenny DeRoche. I am in Worcester on Newton Square area. So the grant
Yenny, mute
makes
your
no
background.
mention of a drone except for the town of Upton, where it's explicitly stated for them. It states, including the purchase of an explosive ordnance disposal canine, an EOD canine, a canine vehicle, and de-escalation equipment. The intent of this sentence does not seem to include an item like a drone, where it is explicitly stated only as a item for Upton. Has the grant giver been asked about the usage of this for that purpose? Also, as the speakers invited by Councillor Hajii stated, de-escalation is not what happens by using drones. It is an intimidating object that can escalate situations, not just situations related to the unhoused.
After Yanni talks.
Also, why are we purchasing an item before we have been able to review the policy surrounding it? It makes no sense to purchase something before we know how it will be used, especially if a policy can be rejected or continuously changed, so that we may be expending funds on a drone that is not appropriate for the use or even able to be used. Also, yes, Worcester has a ban on facial recognition, but other organizations and departments can access said footage, and they don't have the same ban at a federal and state level. What protection are we providing to the people of Worcester who expect to not be subject to facial recognition, since this does open us up to it? I also asked that the police provide information on how this drone would likely have been used in the past year or more, for what kinds of cases. This would tell us far more about its use cases than any information provided in abstract. It's a shame that the City Council has no say or way to prevent this from occurring, and that this meeting and others for it, therefore, are community input theater. Also, as I asked at 2 previous City Council meetings, please use the free Zoom setting to provide closed captioning during meetings. This is an accessibility issue. It is literally a toggle in the settings that can be turned on for the entire account. Thank you.
Thank you, Yanni.
Thank you. Did you want to respond to that, Deputy?
Madam Chair, just that we've been reiterating the same thing over and over. I'm not sure if people are watching the whole meeting and then just coming on and trying to keep saying the same stuff, but
because you're not going to do anything about it.
As far as this is not a grant, it's an award. We spoke about that. And as I explicitly said, the UAS is a de-escalation tool. And when you can be several blocks away and see if the person has a handgun, instead of approaching them on foot, that's called de-escalation.
I might want to add that Senator Moore did speak on this, and had actually said that he had been kind of inclusive in terms of de-escalation, because it was really up to the police
they're going to
department
try to
determine
undercut your whole
what he
point
wanted.
by
So
focusing on the monotonous.
I think that answers that. And I just want to make a comment. First of all, I actually did file an order to request that the City of Worcester Police Department purchase a drone. For all of the reasons that, positive reasons that we've been talking about. It was never
very positive. Can't you hear all the positive comments?
Nor is it the police department, nor the city council, nor the manager to ever violate anybody's rights. And so from that perspective, it is a tool that will enable us to assist the citizens of Worcester. The other thing I want to make very clear is that if you think I'm not listening, then you're wrong.
Yeah,
if you think this isn't an opportunity to discuss this, then you're wrong.
He was the only person to get up and be pro.
Concerns about the homeless, and will certainly that'll be taken into consideration, and discussions will be had with people in that field. So I think that that's important. So just to be transparent, for people, I did file the order originally to have drones purchased by the City of Worcester.
Then recuse yourself from the vote.
Let's move forward. AJ,
terrible.
next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next person I can identify is Emiliano Falcon Morano. I will also unmute him now.
Hello, thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. My name is Emiliano Falcon Morano. I'm the Policy Counsel for the Technology for Liberty program at the ACLU of Massachusetts. We at the ACLU have significant concerns about the use of unmanned aerial surveillance technology for law enforcement purposes. Any government
guy
use
came
of
in super
drones
friendly.
should be authorized only detailed and comprehensive policy to protect civil rights, civil liberties, and equal justice. Unfortunately, as it was mentioned today several times, no such policy has been put forward. And for the reasons I'm going to explain today, the ACLU therefore recommends that the City Council urge the city manager not to approve the use of this technology until a comprehensive and civil liberties focused policy regulating the use of drones is submitted to the city manager, city council, and the general public. Drone technology offers government agencies low cost, relatively easy to deploy aerial surveillance capabilities never before available. Among other concerns, this low cost and easy to deploy surveillance poses privacy risks, as it could lead to warrantless aerial surveillance of people's activities and associations. Additionally, improperly managed drone operations could chill First Amendment protected activities, threaten public safety, and lead to discriminatory targeting. At least 44 states have passed legislation to regulate the use of drones, but Massachusetts is not one of them. There are no state laws regulating the use of drones, either privately or government operated. In the absence of any state law regulating government use of drones, local governments, like the city of Worcester, must closely scrutinize and subject drone use to strict and comprehensive policies in order to protect civil rights and civil liberties. The proposal forwarded to this body does not contain a drone policy. Instead, the proposal describes various hypothetical situations in which a drone might be used. However, there are many other issues a drone policy should address, and they are absent from the proposal. Among those missing elements are limitations regarding the use and operation
I'm
of
swooning
drones,
over this guy's accent. This is
regarding
fantastic.
storage and retention of data and privacy considerations. And
He
I want to add
punctuates
here
all the
that
right-
these elements do not depend upon the model or type of drone.
They
I
were
have
kinda loud and
personally
distracting.
read several policies about drones, including the state police policy about drones, and the model or type of drone is not mentioned or even given attention to. And this makes sense because the basics of the policy should be the same, regardless of the type or make of a drone. The proposal even states and acknowledges that many points
I
laid
fucking love
out
this man.
will
I don't
be
know
the
anything about
basis
him.
of a comprehensive
he's
policy.
great.
But that,
Get him
but
as
that
a
policy
guest.
does not exist now, and the city manager, the city council, and the public cannot provide substantive feedback without such a policy. Today, the police department were saying a lot of things about how they are going to use drones, how they are not going to use drones, and nothing is stopping them from putting all these things they mentioned today in writing and draft a policy. And we are here and we want to help. In this vein, we believe that a policy should address 4 main areas: privacy and civil rights and civil liberties, data collection, processing, use, and retention, access to surveillance data, and transparency. First, the policy must include provisions protecting the privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties of Worcester residents. The policy should acknowledge—
If you could please just wrap up your comments, you're well over 2 minutes. Thank you.
Sorry, yeah, I just want to say that that the policy should deal with these 4 areas. I submitted written testimony already to the council, so please take a look at what we came up with. Especially, we believe that there should not be use of drones for a criminal investigation unless there is a warrant when the drone is going to invade a reasonable expectation of privacy.
And if there's a warrant, they can get the state police one.
To prohibit the weaponization of drones, either by using them as a weapon or by attaching weapons to them.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next.
Madam Chair, the next person I can identify is Francesca Bartholomew Gerard. I just asked to unmute
Where do you guys see if this is really him?
Hello, my name is Francesca Bartholomew Gerard. I'm a Worcester resident
He is
and
handsome.
homeowner. I'm really, really concerned over the proposed use in finding encampments of unhoused people. Since I've moved to Worcester, I'm appalled at police behavior. Reports of a police dog being kicked and abused by their handler, officers ODing at house parties during a pandemic, sticking a police dog on a person suffering a mental health episode. The Worcester Police has not shown themselves capable of caring and protecting for its citizens. I do not see a drone being used carefully or responsibly, nor with any good intent. Beyond that, drones are a surveillance tool. The message it sends is that our citizens aren't safe.
I don't know
and
about
that
this.
Big Brother is watching us.
Do you know about
Tools
this, Brendan?
of surveillance are used
It does sound familiar.
disproportionately to
Let me look at my files.
to hurt people of color. This drone is a racist tool of a police state. And I haven't heard any responses from the police department except for bike shedding over trivialities, over the weight of the drone.
Ooh, bike shedding. Did we hear that?
minimizing the
We learned
community
about bike
concerns.
shedding 3 weeks ago, folks.
You're our employees, our
Yes,
taxpayers.
Thank you, Yenny.
Pay
August 2020.
your wages. You work for us. The community doesn't want this. That's all.
Well spoken.
Deputy Chief.
Madam Chair, in reference to this caller, a few people calling up in rejection of this, saying we don't have policies, we don't have
Few
this, we don't have
people.
that. When we do go throughout the whole community, that's when we'll know as far as how much support we actually have. Just because people aren't calling in here does not mean the whole community does not want this. The people I've talked to do want it.
Are they cops?
Thank you. Next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next person I can identify is Natalia
No.
Cosgrove. I just
Cipro's the
unmuted
only person
Natalia
that's been in
now.
favor of it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think we're supposed to refer to him as
Hi,
failed city
so
council
my
candidate. Rick
name's
Cipro.
Dewey Cosgrove, and I'm a teen who lives in the Tatnick
Formal title.
neighborhood. And I'd like to remind everyone that the city's job is to look out for the best interests of the people who live here, not to terrorize and control us. I think it's absurd we would consider spending city funds on penalizing people in a difficult situation they didn't choose, instead of helping them back onto their feet. The idea is borderline dystopian. And as someone disabled who cannot defend himself, the idea of the police in this city having any more power than they already do terrifies me. I know some people have said it before, but my personal experience as well is that not all of the cops in this city are kind or even respectful to us. And again, the city works for the people and needs to listen to the voice of the people. The city cannot criminalize being poor. Public schools in our city don't often even have clean bathrooms. So I'd like stall doors in our bathrooms before drones watching us. And again, as stated before, please closed captions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next person I can identify is Judy Diamondstone.
Fucking
I just
weird.
unmuted Judy now.
Hello, thank you.
Fun.
My name is Judy Diamondstone. I'm a Worcester resident. And I am responding to the information that I had before this meeting. I will try and make my comments relevant. So Chief Sergeant maintains that the police department conducted extensive research on best practices and benefits surrounding the use of drones. And he went on to specify outreach to other police departments and law enforcement
It
agencies.
really buzzes them up.
That research does not engage with advocates of civil liberties, civil rights, or concerned citizens. That is an inadequate basis for making a decision about this technology, as we have heard from people tonight. I have a hard time trusting that the police department wants to surveil our unhoused residents because they're concerned
You could
about
have just
their
stopped that. I
welfare.
have trouble trusting the
Other
police
people
department.
have spoken to this issue beautifully. I don't want to, I don't need to add comments. I think that the concerns about use of the technology to identify encampments has been heard by people on this committee. I hope so. Certainly there are better ways than.
No, but this isn't everybody, JS
There are better
Carpo.
uses of funding to address the concerns of our unhoused population.
Did we take a vote on the official
Many
name for
residents
the
beyond
drone?
those who have shown up here tonight have a hard
You
time.
haven't donated enough to the Worcester
trusting
cops to get
a
that.
police department,
feel
and
like
in
that's a
particular, the
move, right? Like we should get two to
spokespeople,
pass an order on the council
its
that the city gets to
spokespeople, the
crowdsource
chief
a name
and
for the
deputy
drone,
chief,
and anytime it's deployed, they
who
have
have
to deploy it.
asserted and
Part of the
continue to
policy,
maintain
they have
that
to
there
deploy it
is
by
no
name. We'll do the whole
racism
like
in
Bodie
the police
McBoatface
department.
thing from Reddit,
If
right? Like,
someone
we'll come up with the
ignores
most
or denies the
disparaging name
social
for police
reality
possible,
that we
and
are
they're going to
all
say it out loud.
witness to, we have to be skeptical.
Flying pig.
Police, the deputy chief has maintained that he's concerned about public participation.
What if we named
but
it
he
like the
dismisses
We
the
Abuse
public
People
participation
#1?
that he hears because it is because it expresses concerns about it's in opposition to his own position, and he
What would
can
you go
speak
with,
to
Mo?
people at Crime Watch meetings who will support his position, and those are the people he is going to listen to. How can we trust this public safety committee or other of our elected representatives on the city council if they continue to exercise no oversight of the Worcester Police Department and grant without question and actually praise whatever the police do ask for,
If you
including
please wrap up your
everyone's-
comments, you're well beyond 2 minutes. Thank you.
I'll wrap it up. Their request for more funding for problematic technologies. I would like to hear probing questions from this committee.
Yeah, Rich. We've
And
had some really good
I would
callers.
like to hear
But they don't represent the city at all, you see.
answers that are more than
it's
rhetorical.
just a small slice.
To questions brought before you by your constituents. Thank you.
Well, the people that they've talked to
Thank you.
all want drones.
Next, did you want to respond, Jeff?
Madam Chair, I'd like to respond to her. As far as the procedure for this acquisition, we received the award, nothing was purchased. It then goes to City Council, it then goes to the Public Safety Committee, and then goes back to City Council. That is how the information is being relayed to the public. In addition to that, we are having community meetings in which the public can
Guys, if you
respond
really
and
want this, you
offer
got to get your friends
their
to call it.
suggestions. To me, that is open government. I'm not sure how else we could get the word out there. This is our actually third time meeting. It will be 4 times. So you can actually come down here if you like and provide your participation. You could ask me out in the hallway any questions you like. I'll gladly answer anything you need to ask.
Thank you. Next, AJ.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next person I can identify is actually a phone number. The phone number is 551-250 is what it starts in. To unmute yourself, I believe you do *6 if that's helpful to you. Give the folks a second to do so.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you. If you could please just provide your full name, city or town of residence, and begin your testimony.
Yeah, of course. My name is Nellie Medina. I live in District 5 in Worcester. I want to thank Councilwoman Atal Hajahi, Councilman King, and Councilmember Dunajan for their pleas of transparency related to purchasing drones and for being the most trusted city councilors. Well, first, we need police to do work and do work to engage the community. Drones will allow police to monitor local protests and the protesters, and there is no framework governing their use or how police will use the data collected. It is irresponsible of this committee to allow the purchase of a drone, and worse, the bundle of tasers and a drone, when rural police work and community engagement will have the most significant and most positive effects on crime prevention. A drone will target perceived individuals and violate their privacy and First Amendment rights. As a community organizer, the most common fears brought to my attention over the last 2 weeks from the public about drones are the collection of data and images without drawing attention, and concerns their Fourth Amendment right to privacy may be in jeopardy if police entities can use drones to monitor the public at will, in secret, hovering in quiet. Until there are municipal policies
I don't
and
know
laws
why
on
they're
the books
highlighting the
related
fact
to the
that
use
Don
of
is here,
drones,
but not here.
it is correct to assume that our constitutional rights and privacy are in jeopardy. Lastly, I will ask that if there are
Agreed, Jazz
forums about the
Carpo.
use
That's
of
why we're
drones,
doing this.
public policy controlling the drones, they're open to the public and not held by any specific organization or member of city council that may or not represent a subgroup. Hence, all the community members have the same opportunity to attend regardless of their deference to City of Worcester. I also request a formal inquiry into whether Councilwoman Kate Toomey's participation in this matter is a conflict of interest, and I will follow up with a petition for the sake of transparency. Thank you to the sergeant and the committee for putting this on. I look forward to more transparency
Awesome,
moving
Annie.
forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to request the city solicitor to please respond to that accusation again.
Madam Chair, there's no conflict of interest. There's nothing before us that involves the Sheriff's Department to begin with. And number two, the things that you have done, the work you've done with the Sheriff's Department has nothing to do with the acquisition of drones by the city of Worcester.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Okay.
Or Kathleen,
Um,
damn it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next person I can identify is Kathy Roy. I just unmuted Kathy now.
Is this going to be a pro?
Yep.
Hell yeah, Yenny. Good for you. I've had mine for 2 years now.
Not hearing Kathy.
Oh,
We can move on to
shucks.
The next person
Terrible.
on
Terrible
Zoom, you're
news.
listed as Mass JWJ. If you could please just provide your full name, city or town of residence, and begin your testimony. Mass JWJ. Not hearing that person.
If they say my name, it literally
Next
says
person I can
Travis.
identify is a phone number again. Has the phone number of
Travis Duda, just here to observe.
508-425 is how it starts. Again, if you're on the phone, you can unmute using *6 if that's helpful to you. Let's see, 508-425. Not seeing you.
AJ.
Hi.
Mo.
Oh, there we go. Could you just provide your name, city, town, or residence, and begin your testimony, please?
Yeah, my name is Richard Klein. I've been a Worcester resident since '97. I'm not going to belabor the points that other people have made. I just want to be on record as thinking that a police drone is a bad idea. It absolutely sounds dystopian. Yeah, I'm opposed to it. That's all.
Moderating,
Thank
that's AJ. He works in the clerk's
Thank you, Mr.
office.
Coyne. Let's see here.
Thank
the
you.
next person. Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
No, it's a thank you.
Oh, of course,
And
absolutely. So let's see here. The next person I can identify is Catherine Colano. I just, let's see here.
We're well past 10 callers.
Unfortunately,
now, right?
Catherine Colano is using an older version of Zoom, so I cannot unmute you. Gerardo Sciano is the next person I can identify. If you can just unmute yourself.
The guy who's about to speak has got a great
Good
Twitter
evening,
account.
Gerardo Sciano, City of Worcester. I originally had jumped on here because I just wanted to observe and educate myself, but I figured I'd make a point that might be helpful. A lot of people have brought up the issue of privacy concerns. Certainly the use of drones implicates Fourth Amendment unreasonable search, seizure issues, privacy issues. A lot of people have mentioned that there's no law on this. I don't think that's true. I think that there is a whole body of case law from the United
What's his
States
handle
Supreme
on
Court
Twitter, Brendan?
and the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court and lower courts that addresses the issues of privacy concerns. While those cases might not discuss specifically drones, they do address aerial surveillance and infrared and thermal technology use when it comes to
Just put it in the
use
private
by police
Thank you.
departments. And so I would suggest
Oh,
respectfully,
this dude
that
just
the city
invited me
solicitor's
to
office
a
provide
group
maybe
today.
a memo on that, just to provide the public with some information about the contours of that right, what the police can and can't do constitutionally. And I believe that information would be helpful with respect to.
And I like that he doesn't point out that he's a lawyer while
on the
speaking
issue.
on
Certainly
matters of
the
law.
Police department, we don't want
He is a
them
lawyer.
to
Yeah.
be violating anybody's civil rights. And so I think that research is warranted. I also want to note that I heard a lot of people say a lot of
Don't worry,
disrespectful
Rich.
things
Well done.
to some of the people
Yeah.
in
You
the
called
room
in and
today.
said it to them, man. That's
I don't
cool.
think that's right. And I just wanted to thank the city councilors and the professionals in the room for your respect and courtesy. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I actually would like to do a chairman's order to request the law department provide a report as suggested. I think that would be helpful for everybody. Is that okay?
Thank you,
Mr.
Madam
Solicitor?
Chair.
All right, so we need to take a roll call or not?
On chairman's orders, it's not required.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next.
The next person I can identify is Emmett Carner. I just tried to unmute. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong person. A lot of names. Emmett Carner, I just tried to unmute you.
Hello, thanks. My name is Emmett Carner. I'm a resident of Worcester.
You did a great job.
And I just wanted to voice my concerns against the Worcester Police Department drone acquisition. I'll keep my comments short because I think a lot of people had very good points already. But I don't think drones are efficient instruments of de-escalation. I think de-escalation involves not using forces of escalation rather than making investments that can be utilized to militarize the police under the guise of de-escalation. But specifically, I wanted to ask some questions to the police members advocating for this right now. I've heard you say that these funds kind of were limited between the drone and the taser technology, and I was wondering why we were limited
are you paying attention?
only those two things for de-escalation. I know things like investing in social workers to facilitate interactions with people having mental health crises, that is de-escalation. And considering that crime levels are on the decrease in Worcester, as well as Massachusetts, as well as nationwide, I'm wondering, why are we escalating our response to a de-escalating problem? Thank you for your time.
Deputy Chief, did you want to respond?
Yes, Madam Chair, to the caller's question, whenever we have a situation involves either like a barricaded situation or a SWAT event, we do go out with public mental health professionals who accompany us on scene. They're there from the beginning to the end, and they are used as a de-escalation tool. But as we know, there are people who are intent on committing heinous acts, and you need to have police there when the mental health worker cannot navigate through that and people's lives are in jeopardy. So we do utilize all de-escalation, including mental health.
And that, they should have just been more clear about that. It has microphone technologies.
They ran out of options. That's all.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next person I can identify on Zoom, they're listed as ATW17. If you could please just provide your full name and city or town of residence before beginning your testimony.
Yes, Colleen West, Worcester, District 1. Just want, can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is actually Rick's wife.
I just wanted to
seriously
make a comment that, you know, these drones are excellent for search and
this
rescue.
is literally Rick Cipro's wife.
Wandering away, crime, we have gangs, we have drugs, we have shootings.
Oh,
all
so
helping the police. Why are all these people against helping the police? It seems like the same activists all the time speaking up, you know, stop
yeah, like
with
why
the
are we hearing
unfounded
from you?
attacks against our wonderful police department. It's so tiresome. All we want to do is keep our residents and citizens in this city safe. That's all they want to do. Nobody's spying on anybody. Nobody's evil here, except maybe some of these people calling. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next.
Madam
Gloria
Chair,
had
that is
a
all the folks
had a
that have their
smirk on her
hands raised.
face. Did you guys notice that?
Okay. So we certainly have heard from quite a few people, quite a few concerns. They'll all be relayed to the council. The
Come on,
manager,
guys. These drones are
report,
great.
And we certainly will be having many more meetings in the future. We will be having a meeting after the other report is brought forward to the council. Procedurally, again, I remind people that we couldn't discuss that today because it needs to go to the council first. And then we will have a meeting on that. They were actually, it's responses to questions that were asked last week. So I want to thank everyone who called in, whether you support it or not. I want to thank everyone here who came down to City Hall. I want to thank all of the folks at the table my colleagues and AJ as well, the deputy
Should
chief
be
and
everything under
officers.
30 days apparently, because then they're
Appreciate
gonna
all
delete it.
that you've
Yeah,
been
that's
to
the
that,
confusing
Mr.
part to me,
Solicitor,
Rich, is
for being here.
they say that they're
to
destroying
answer,
any video
questions
footage after
about
30
the
days. I'm going to guess that's
policies
going to be
and
their standing
procedures,
policy
et
with body
cetera.
cams as well
To that,
until the
at that
state
note,
hands down further
we are
guidance.
going to close this meeting. And,
Madam Chair.
yes, Counselor?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to one of the speakers today. So first I want to say, Deputy Chief, I really want to appreciate how you presented today and how I really felt like you really was listening.
Toomey is upset.
And taking into account and trying to respond. And I think you did that very well. And I just want to say thank you for that. And so I want to make sure that as I make this comment, that's not a reflection on that. I do feel like it's really important to understand that it's not that when we speak, it's not about that community isn't enough, and the issue of racism is a reality, and the issue of like trust and that it's never going to be there. No, that's not accurate. And the reality is that I won't do this today and I won't do this right now, but there has been a lot of damage from many systems. So, you know, to come up and speak at a podium, you know, representing an institution that has been very harmful to communities, to marginalized community, and disregard it and say that no matter what we do is not enough, that's incorrect. And I think that what you was presenting today and how it was responded by the deputy chief was very good, but disregarding what has been historically a
Well done,
problem in this country and throughout the world and in this community is why people are responding the way they are. And I just wanted to make sure that we understand that. And we also don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Not every rotten apple is included. So I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Florio, did you want to say anything?
I just want to say thank you to everybody here.
The double Donna to
and
send
also
us
to
home.
encourage those also that next time when we have this meeting that may be in favor of this technology. We heard most of the people were not in favor of it, but it's more difficult to call in and say you support something rather than you're angry and you don't support something.
The Cipro
So
showed us.
I would hope to hear from more people next time we have this meeting. Thank you.
Thank
And
you,
if you don't,
Counselor. And
maybe you shouldn't do it.
frankly, I just want to say that everywhere I've gone over the past week, I've heard mostly, I would say 99% people that I spoke with and
were they cops?
were 100% positive and understood the issues. And certainly people expressed concern about the issues with the homelessness and the encampments and all of that. And so
what I'm hearing
we
is
recognize
go
that,
find
we hear
Kate.
that,
Go
I'm
find
sure
her in
everyone
public and
will,
tell her
will have
personally
some conversation
that
about
you're
it.
against it.
This is not, the policy is not done yet because they need to listen. So I think that's important. I appreciate everybody that was involved and I appreciate all the research. There was a question about the research and I know that there was a lot of time and energy and effort put into this. So I want to request that, I want to basically say thank you to everybody here for your expertise, for your professionalism. And I want to thank those people who asked some good questions. There certainly were some food for thought. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you at City Council, I'm sure. Thank you.
Well, that was riveting.
Yeah, well, let's keep Donna on. Oh, there she is.
Damn it.
I mean, the depressing part here is it sounded like the solicitor made it pretty clear that it really doesn't matter what anyone has to say, right? Like, this is the manager's decision, and the manager agrees with the police department that this is an important tool for them to acquire and utilize. And it's also the onus is on the police department to write the policy governing how that tool will be used. And they're not interested in anybody's input. It's just kind of too bad, really, right? Because, from a good faith perspective, I'm going to say this like tongue in cheek, but like from a good faith perspective, to have like a functioning society, you need to be able to pretend that your institutions value and respect the people that they oversee, right? That goes right out the window when you're going around just saying fuck y'all, like we're only here because we have to be.
Yeah. Oh, it's painfully obvious that this was all for theater tonight.
Yeah, and I hope Patel and too make the most of that, because I was having some side conversations with folks who I trust way more than myself, and quite frankly the solicitor, when it comes to budgetary matters, and they cannot conceive of any way that money can come into the city without the city council approving both the money and its use. But I'll leave that to smarter people than I to figure out.
Yeah, and then Sarai coming in there at the end with some interesting points, actually going for the throat at a meeting like this.
Right. And I mean, good on her for doing that. I think she was speaking directly to Rick. That's the impression that I got, right? Like she was addressing the deputy
I was
chief,
getting that feeling. Yeah.
But it sounded like that was directed at Rick Cipro, and good on her for doing that. And I agree with one of the comments about the bad apples thing. I wish people would actually say the
whole saying.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's not that hard, right? Again, just from a good faith perspective, they're the ones that are supposed to be able to recognize that. Yeah.
So, any other final thoughts? I mean, to me, this thing went much longer than I thought it would, but I'm glad
it went longer than I thought it would. And I guess the only thought that I have is that I'm surprised it took us this long to actually make an acquisition like this, right? Like this is technology that the second largest city in New England probably should have acquired 10 years ago.
Sure.
In a weird way, I guess we should be thankful that we're inept in the sense that we tend to be about 10 years behind the curve when it comes to technology. So we're just getting to it now. If it was 10 years ago, I think a lot of people would have just said, hey, cool toy, and written it off without really thinking through. Rich, I think it was you that used the word dystopian. That's exactly what it is. And that's our reality now. So.
Yeah, the cops are going to have drones in the skies, and they're going to constantly watch us. I mean, granted, the cameras are already there. They made a point. The cameras are already there, but the cameras don't have the ability to change angles and to move with.
Well, and I don't want to give Rick Cipro too much credit, but he did say one thing that I think has some value and it bears repeating, is that, yeah, I mean, like lots of people have your personal data, right? Lots of corporations, government agencies, foreign government entities and whatnot. You use TikTok? Yeah. I mean, like you're literally turning over a lot of personal data to the Chinese government, right? And that's not meant to sound conspiratorial. The point is, though, that with each one of those data collection services, whether you intend to or not, you're signing off on an end user license agreement. And we don't have the ability to do that when it comes to our local law enforcement. The Fourth Amendment is supposed to protect us in that regard. And clearly it's falling short in the sense that, you can have a police official come up and say, hey, well, everybody else is doing a worse job. That's like the worst kind of whataboutism. Like we're supposed to be better than that.
Yeah, and then to go whataboutism, but then say that isn't Worcester, Minnesota isn't Worcester, or whatever it was.
It's everywhere, right? And that's the whole point, right? Like we're not special. Like there are shitty people in our police department. There are great people in our police department, right? But it's the onus is on the great people to do a great job of getting rid of the shitty people. And that is exactly how we are, just like Minnesota and every other community in the country.
Yeah, well said. All right, that feels like a good place to end it.
All right.
People,
we'll see you next Tuesday then.
Yeah, join us next Tuesday for a normal city council meeting. We do appreciate you hanging out with Brendan and I. Go find our awesome sponsor, Crafty Kombucha, at your local purveyor. The only the other local brewery. And if
or
they don't
steal
carry
it from Donna.
There you go.
Known craft tea lover, steal Donna's Crafty Kombucha.
Yeah.
Use force if necessary.
Drone. Use a drone. See if you can lift it out of her backyard. Listen to the 508 podcast. We're Pie and Coffee, wherever you can find podcasts. Do you guys still release on YouTube?
Yes. Yeah, we are. And hopefully we'll start doing it here soon. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We got to figure that out. And then, yeah, Seltzer Time's coming back next week. So we'll see you Monday and Tuesday and pretty much every day eventually here on the Win Nanny channel.
Looking forward to it. Have a great week.
Smell you later.